Chapter 17.
Have a restful sleep?
Demi asked, her sharp eyes on his as he sat down at the bar next to Lex.
Sure,
Jack said, an honest smile on his face. When the leather-clad woman with the pointed ears turned to face him, Jack couldn't help but let that smile grow brighter.
What?
Lex asked, her own yet slightly suspicious smile tugging at the corners of her mouth.
Feels like it's going to be a good day, Zol.
Demi came back and placed the same seaweed-wrapped fish jerky rolls in front of him. He took the food in his hand and bit off a large bite. It didn't take as long as he thought it would to feel the beginnings of too much fish. The smell was starting to get to him, and seaweed had a particularly salty flavor. The sudden craving for a hot cup of coffee struck Jack's stomach almost harder than Herrick had. They finished their meals and headed for the day's climb in the tower.
You're leveling fast, Jack.
Lex began just before she reached for the entrance.
Be careful. Stay alive.
He looked her right in the eye.
I will.
Lex nodded and entered the tower. Jack was right behind her. The world flashed white, and Jack found himself standing in near darkness. It took a moment for his eyes to adjust to the flickering white candles sitting inside recessed holes in the walls. Closer inspection showed the walls were wholly made from bones. Thousands of human skulls, all mortared together with a solid black unknown substance. The tiny square room ended just above Jack's head, and he could almost touch both walls if he held his fingertips out. Every surface was made from the bones of the dead.
Pleasant,
Jack said to himself. Behind him he found the exit orb, and in front of him was the only exit from the claustrophobic skull room. Jack took a step forward and tried to ignore that he was walking on people's faces. The opening led directly to a downward flight of dusty wooden stairs that seemed to make a sharp right turn at the bottom. Another candle sat flickering within a cubbyhole recessed into the skulls halfway up the stairs. With a shrug, Jack began to tread lightly down the steps. His boots reached the landing of the wooden boards, and the dim descending stairway appeared to continue downward in a spiral. By the fifth flight down, he began to count the steps. There were exactly 20 every time, and then they came to a landing with a right turn.
Alt, what the hell is this?
Jack asked his imaginary friend, growing bored.
Can a floor be nothing but stairs?
They can be anything.
Well, hopefully there is something interesting soon.
Jack spiraled down 2 more flights before he came to a landing with an arch cut into the skull and mortar wall to the left, in addition to more stairs down to the right. The room was as small as the one he started in and dimly lit by recessed candles, but the massive rat-like creature was what caught his attention. It had huge ears, no eyes, and a mouth full of yellow, dagger-like teeth. The monster came low at him, and Jack adjusted his wooden buckler to take the lunging hit. The large animal hissed and scurried back into the room. Jack took the opportunity to draw his sword and noticed that he hadn't lost any HPs from the blocked hit. Putting that information to the back of his mind, Jack focused on dispatching the greasy furred monster before him. The urge to just blast it with his mining laser was strong, but he didn't want to blow all his mana on the first floor. Even if he could zap it into toast with a 1-second beam and a net of 1 MP spent, it would still be mana he couldn't use on floor 2. Or 3. Jack carefully maneuvered it into a corner, and the animal turned sideways to try and make itself look bigger. The desperate act only gave Jack a bigger target, and he jabbed his sword downward into its matted fur. Blind Blight Rat -7. Defeated. No items dropped, and there was nothing of interest in the tiny room, so Jack left and continued down this dark world of wooden stairs and skulls. He came to another room after a few flights and right turns and spotted 2 of the blind blight rats, and in one of the shadowed corners sat a small box. Jack confidently strode into the room and drew his cheating sword. One of the rats lunged at him while the other tried to circle around and flank him. Practicing one of the techniques that Herrick had unintentionally taught him in the sparring yard, Jack sidestepped the lunge and made a quarter turn. This placed the attacking creature between him and the one circling around, and Jack continued his motion with a downward slice from his blade. He cut the creature in half, and a small dagger clattered to the ground. Excitement blossomed in Jack because he knew his sword was about to get another upgrade already.
Ha!
He yelled at the one remaining monster, and its oversized ears flattened backward. The thing's muzzle pulled back in a hateful snarl as it backed itself into another corner. Jack advanced quickly and stabbed it in the face as it tried to lunge again. The room was clear.
These are easy,
Jack said to himself, but Alt answered.
Only floor 1.
Yeah, but I'm doing much better compared to the first time I entered.
He bent down to inspect the dagger that dropped from the disgusting rat creature. Blunt knife, dagger, value 1, damage 1.
Oh,
Jack said, disappointment taking over. He shrugged and merged it with his own blade. After the resulting flash faded, he inspected his weapon. ARV Alternus, sword, value 16 out of 25, damage 7, hit chance plus .03, crit chance plus .06. The stats looked identical to what he remembered. A small frown pulled down Jack's lips.
well, that didn't do much.
Increased value by 1.
Progress is progress, I suppose.
He said as he searched the simple wooden box in the corner of the room. Floor 1, chest. Thick rotting robe. Chest, value 2. Defense, 1. Max MP, plus 2. Wooden clogs. Feet, value 1. Defense, 1. He shoved the crappy items into his inventory and continued his downward descent into the unusual Floor 1 layout. He came to a few more rooms and dispatched a few more rats, but nothing was much of a challenge. The items he collected weren't of much value either. There were no equipment upgrades, no other blades, and he calculated his current haul to be worth a total of 7.
Nowhere close to Lex's 317.
Only floor 1.
Alt repeated in his mind. Jack sighed.
You're right. This is going to take a lot of work, isn't it? Should I skip right to the boss?
There was another of Alt's long pauses. Maybe it was Jack's imagination, but he felt a bit of frustration from deep inside him. Frustration that wasn't his.
Now, no. Collect everything.
The decision was out of his hands, it seemed, as the stairway came to an end after the one last turn. The final downward flight ran straight into a larger room than he had seen on this floor. Everything was still skulls and candles sunken into the walls, but there were also 6 blind blight rats and the boss's exit orb in the room.
Whoa! 6 bosses?
Anything is possible.
Alt responded. All the sightless rats turned to face Jack, who stood in the archway that led into the boss chamber. He was tempted to use his mana to burn through them quickly, but a much better idea came to him. Jack took one step back and onto the wooden landing outside the boss chamber. He knew he was meant to run in there and try and fight them all at once, but now they could only come at him 1, maybe 2 at a time. The disgusting animals all scrambled across the skulls with small sharp claws, and their pink worm-like tails dragged behind them. Jack met the first one with a jab to the face. Floor 1 boss C, -7, defeated. But the others didn't react at all to their nestmate going up in a waft of buzzing particles. One lunged at Jack's feet, and he danced backward, putting one boot up on the wooden stairs behind him. 2 more climbed over the one that had attacked, and Jack's plan was starting to fall apart. He hadn't considered them stacking up onto each other. He jabbed his sword into another, destroying it. Floor 1 boss D, -7, defeated. But there were 4 left, and all of them pushed forward to attack. He blocked one going high, but another was able to get a bite in on his virtually unprotected calf. Jack, -2, HP 23 out of 25.
Ah! Get away from me!
Jack yelled as he stabbed into the writhing mass of black fur and snapping, snarling mouths. Floor 1 Boss A -7 defeated. As he shouted, their ears flattened, and 2 of the remaining 3 scurried back a few steps before surging forward again. Jack blocked a bite from the remaining rat as he realized these things had a weakness. Did every monster have a weakness?
Hey, you idiots!
Jack yelled as loud as he could, and the one boss rat that was harassing him recoiled from the loud noise and couldn't scurry back into the boss room fast enough.
The big ears were a big clue, Jack,
he said to himself as he chased in after them. Using a combination of sharp shouts and his sharp blade, Jack destroyed the rest of the monsters. The last one exploded in a shower of glitter and coins. In the back of the room, a larger gold chest and a wooden door faded into existence. With a satisfied nod, Jack bent down and scooped up the gold. Coins 26. But what really interested him was the boss chest. He held his hand out to inspect it. Floor 1 rewards, boss chest. Brass rapier, sword, value 3, damage 3. Crooked axe, value 2, damage 2. Iron scrap boots, feet, value 3, defense 3.
Hey, that's not bad. Can you absorb an axe, Alt?
No, incompatible type.
Damn. Oh well. At least we have this sword-type item.
Jack moved it over his main hand slot and checked his weapon. ARV Alternus, sword, value 19 out of 25, damage 7, hit chance plus 0.03, crit chance plus 0.06.
Still no damage boost, huh?
Floor 1 item,
Alt said, as if that explained things.
Are you telling me that you won't get any stat boosts unless I feed you higher value blades?
A long pause, and then...
correct.
Jack shook his head.
Well, at least your value is increasing. Still don't know what that does, but hey, numbers going up is numbers going up.
Jack moved the rest of the items into his inventory and added the total value as 12. He thought about Lex again, and how she was such a beautiful sight for sore eyes after a day in the tower. He wondered how long it would be before they could go in together. He liked the idea of fighting by her side, and of spending the whole day with her. Her healing ability would also really come in handy in here, especially if she got MP back for killing things. The reasons this needed to happen spread through Jack like a ripple through a pond. With a sigh, he reached out to the door and pulled on the iron ring for floor 2. The pure white flash consumed him, and he opened his eyes on a new floor of the tower. Instead of paths or hallways, Jack stood on a flat field of soft reddish-brown grass that stretched unobstructed in every direction. The sky was a sunless uniform gray, yet the landscape seemed well lit. As he scanned his surroundings closer, he saw black dots gathered in random clumps and spread out from each other. Farther into the distance, he saw an immense, round something, like a blurry distant moon hovering over the horizon. His eyes turned down to the odd, soft grass under his boots, and he had to bend down to make sure he was seeing what he thought he was seeing. Jack squatted and reached his hand out to touch what looked like fur, but realized he still had his cloth gloves on. With a thought, he moved them to his inventory and drew his hand across the surface of floor 2.
It's cat fur.
Wide floor, take care.
Jack blinked.
I'll want to come back to what you mean by wide, but I'm still trying to get over the fact that I'm on the back of a giant cat.
But that wasn't exactly true. The soft and dense fur under his fingertips were drastically too small compared to the vast expanse of fur around him. If he were on the back of a colossal cat, the follicles would be like trees compared to his relative size.
This place is weird,
Jack said, standing up and re-equipping his gloves.
Now, what's this wide floor stuff?
No walls.
I see that, but why is that?
Jack trailed off as he actually spent a part of his brain on trying to figure it out.
I could easily be surrounded?
Don't engage multiple groups.
Right. I'll be careful.
Turning all the way around, Jack saw the exit orb pulsing softly behind him. He considered ignoring the clumps of black dots that were most likely the wandering monsters and walking straight in one direction to see if he could find an invisible wall, but he knew he'd find one, or some other barrier. This was a game after all. Although testing the edges of his world was something that Jack generally preferred, wasting time here wasn't going to help him. He pushed his boots into the soft, unsettling fur of whatever landscape this was and made his way toward what he deemed to be the closest group of monsters. There was no wind, and the eerie silence of the vast cat fur world filled Jack with unease. It took longer to close the distance than he expected, but when he saw what was waiting for him, a shudder ran through his spine. A group of 2 humanoid creatures with shiny black armor knelt in the orange fur with spears jabbed into the ground. At least that's what he thought until he drew closer. Then it became clear that these things were bug creatures of some sort. Their skin was shiny beetle carapace, and both of their arms ended in long, sharp needles. The monsters' faces looked like a fly's face with huge, multifaceted eyes, and their heads quickly jerked around at random intervals. Their needle arms were mostly transparent, and from the 20 or so yard distance he was standing, Jack could see red liquid moving up into their bodies.
They're drinking blood from the cat ground?
Images of fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes cycled through his mind, and his skin began to crawl with revulsion. With little thought, he drew his sword and proceeded to burn these horrific creatures to ash. The bright red beam struck one, and Jack canceled it after a 1-second blast. Chitinous Bloodman, -7, defeated. The one he torched pulled its arm out with a spray of blood before fading away with a high-pitched screaming hiss. The second one yanked its own arm needle out of the cat ground and pumped its disturbingly human-like legs quickly as it rushed toward Jack. Jack lasered the second monster as it ran, and he saw something drop onto the ground after it faded away. With a satisfied sigh, he checked his mana reserves. MP 30 out of 32.
I wish there was a better way to restore my mana,
Jack said out loud.
There will be later,
Alt said in his head.
I'd ask how, but I'm sure you'd just repeat yourself.
Correct.
Jack nodded and walked over to where the 2 chitinous bloodmen were having their meal of ground blood and saw a gleaming black sword lying in the orange cat fur.
Hey, a sword already,
he said. With a wide grin, he bent down to inspect it. Bloodsucker, sword, value 10, damage 6, 15% chance to heal 1 HP on kill. Feast on the lives of your foes.
You have got to be kidding me,
Jack said, his mouth hanging open. Chapter 18.
A rare drop,
Alt said, his excitement breaking through the limitations of his electronic voice.
Alt, you ready for this? It's a big one.
Please increase complexity.
I swear, if you say that one more time.
Jack opened his character screen and willed the new black sword into his main hand slot. Even with his hand over his eyes, the burst of light that permeated his existence was absolute. He felt something break free and swim around in his mind like a whale being let out into the vast ocean after being in an aquarium its whole life. These weren't his thoughts or emotions, but he felt euphoric by proximity.
What was that all about?
Jack asked, blinking away his temporary blindness.
That, Jack, my friend, was exactly what I needed. Those recovered resources have opened a new tier to my influence in this simulated universe, and I owe it all to you.
It was Alt, but his voice was crystal clear and verbose.
Wow,
Jack said, a little stunned.
I think that's the first time you used my name.
Alt made an affirmative humming noise before he spoke.
I owe you some answers. and now I can finally express them in a meaningful way. You, might want to sit down. This will probably take a while to bring you up to, speed. I still cannot access a lot of my database. A problem that lies in time, as they say.
Jack stood there blinking. Alt quickly continued, picking up speed and volume as he spoke.
You do not have to rest your leg muscles, if there is no desire. Also, please alert me if I am imposing too many suggestions and causing you to experience annoyance, because I have been mostly in a dormant state due to resource-starved system suspension and some—
Alt!
Jack said, putting his hands to his ears.
Relax for a second and take a breath, okay?
Jack took a deep breath himself and sat down with his legs crossed on the soft cat fur ground.
Now, try that again.
Yes, thank you. First, let me apologize for destroying your real body. It was indeed cremated, burned at 2,000 verns until— Sorry, getting carried away again, and so soon. Anyway, your biological shell was infested with— some of the data is still missing, but I know there is an entity that eats universes. An anti-entity, more like. A dimensional devourer. I know we approached the cosmic anomaly after we lost contact with a deep space outpost, and I believe we were sent to study it. There was an accident. I'm not sure at this junction, but we fled. We tried to warp back home. Instead, and because of the entity's interference, we ended up in a parallel universe. We pulled an infinitesimal part of the multidimensional entity with us, and it swiftly infested my hull, my systems, and the crew. We crashed. Most of the crew died, and many of my systems were damaged.
Jack was listening intently, and he could tell Alt was slowing down as he tried to recall what was happening. He decided to let this machine get it all out and saved all his questions until the end. Alt continued.
The devouring entity tried to consume and convert everything, and I retreated to the only functioning hardware, the entertainment machines, housed in the middle of the crew recreation level. There, I was able to make a stand with molecular constructors, augmenting my physical components, a lot of which came from virtual gaming stations. But it wasn't enough. The infestation reached my core, and I thought all was lost. That was when I observed the universe-consuming entity shift its nature from physical to digital and begin focusing its attention on virtual universes, using the rules and physics of each game world to devour them. I used this information to try and lay a trap, a universe for it to get lost in, but it tore through my first attempts like paper. If the simulations were too unrealistic or unfair, the corrupting entity would no longer be fooled and return its central attention on consuming physical reality. I needed something bigger, more realistic, a living world that fought back. I pooled all of the remaining resources to initiate this virtual world and gave it a life of its own. The 13 surviving crew members volunteered to upload their minds into the system and help resist the universe devourer to be useful. But they didn't really have a choice. They had all become infected, like you. The virtual world had to be as self-contained as possible in order to keep the vile entity enraptured, and as such, I could only observe from the outside. I concentrated on fighting my own battle as they held the all-consuming entity at bay. Then something changed, and the Dimension Devourer began to acquire more system resources instead of lose them. Because of your appearance after all this time, I am finally able to read some of the data inside this closed system, but I still can't access all of what happened. Either way, the simulation has been running for 237,902 years, 159 days, and 12 hours. The original uploaded crew are all gone.
Alt stopped talking, and Jack tried to absorb the insanity that was just dumped on him. He was promised answers, and of course, there were now more questions.
Dead? From what? Old age?
Or worse. I'm sorry if I seem suddenly distracted. I ran into a patch of missing data, and I believe it was important.
Okay. Let me see if I have this right. You are a computer on a spaceship from an alternate dimension. You crash land on my Earth over 200,000 years ago and brought an evil, dimension-eating thing with you. then tricked it into eating a virtual world instead of yourself?
More or less. If it corrupts every tower in this simulation, it will have access to all the ship's systems. Then it will be free to devour your universe soon after. You see, when subroutine Sana was first switched on, the entity focused almost all of its attention on quickly spreading here, but was fought back by the efforts of the crew members and the non-player characters of this world. But it's been slowly winning, and the entity has diverted more of its resources to fighting me in the physical world again. Now, this virtual universe is 78% corrupted, and many towers have fallen.
So, how exactly do the towns, all that fit in? How does feeding the town items change anything?
This world was procedurally generated and currently maintained by multiple gaming intelligence systems. This is the world they created to hide core files. The towers hold system data and resources and are protected by digital monsters. Both sides, light and dark, fight to gain control of the towns linked to a tower by increasing its influence. I almost said complexity there. The NPCs left in the world are brave and capable, but they lack initiative. More aptly put, they are blinded to more imaginative possibilities. The 13 crew members had children with the NPCs, so their patterns permeate many of this universe's virtual inhabitants, but they were ultimately brought to life by virtual game entertainment systems, and those systems always defer to the will of a player.
So, I'm all alone in here. Everyone really is just a computer program.
When you say just a computer program, Jack, these are people with real lives and emotions. We talked about this before, and I'm not sure how entities of pure energy are treated in your dimension, but I am as real as you, quite literally now that you are also a being of pure energy.
Alt, I get it, but there's so much insanity to what you've been saying. I'm just trying to absorb it all. Don't get me wrong, I'm definitely getting a lot of information here, and I'm glad I sat down, but I feel I need to circle back to had children with the NPCs. Can you explain how that even works?
Jack, I know you know how that works.
Jack rubbed his eyes with his fingers.
No, damn it. You know what? Let's skip that one for now. Okay, so this is a game where we are figuratively fighting for the control of a spaceship from an alternate dimension. How do I fit into all of this? Why are you an irremovable sword belt that eats blades?
Ah, that is a great question. A lot of the Devourer's attention is focused on this virtual universe, but not nearly enough. When you stumbled into the ship, the evil entity attempted to corrupt you and lead you to its heart. There it would have a physical agent in the real world. I played one of the remaining songs I had on file, a popular children's nursery rhyme to lure you to me instead. When I detected the corruption consuming your body, I offered you an exit, the only way to remain alive. Your appearance after all this time could be the catalyst that draws the entity's full attention into this virtual trap and allows me to bring critical systems back under my control in the real world. The belt is a direct channel for me to get into the simulation with some actual power, and it is something I had a long time to think about. I really wish I had been able to do something like this when my crew entered, but at the time I assumed that it was imperative that all of my attention be focused on fighting it in the physical world. That might have been an error. I'm not really in here with you. That is to say, I was more like an all-seeing god with no power to change the universe. But since I fused a part of my energy to a new player, I now have the ability to influence the simulation in a way that circumvents some of the rules I've had to follow. As far as blades, I still have to work with the game world rules, and they are a ubiquitous weapon type. I am extremely weak, Jack, and once I found you, I had to write an interface that wouldn't completely break the system. Remember, if the all-consuming entity doesn't believe this world is real, it will stop playing. And at this point, it would quickly consume me, your Earth, and the rest of this universe.
Jack's mind was throbbing. The gray sky of cat fur land spread out infinitely above him, and he breathed in a lungful of the still virtual air. He was sitting inside a simulated world that was inside another simulated world, inside a spaceship, under a mile of rock. His mind had been fused with an artificial intelligence looking for a way to abuse the system. Jack absent-mindedly pet the ground as he spoke.
So, you basically infested me instead.
There was a long pause, and compared to Alt's new ultra-chattiness, it felt significant.
Yes, to save your universe.
And you said I would have died by whatever was infesting me?
Died is too kind of a word, Jack. I'm not sure what it would have been like, but you wouldn't be you anymore.
You said our patterns are merged. I can feel that. I can feel you in my mind. Am I truly still me?
Another long pause.
My behavioral patterns may be influencing your mood, it is true. But you really must believe me when I say that this is nothing compared to the nightmare alternative.
After I stumbled in from the silver mine, did you shut that first door on me and trap me inside the ship?
No,
Alt answered quickly.
I lost the door control systems a long time ago.
Jack nodded to himself. It sounded like the truth. On a whim, he opened his character window and looked at his newly upgraded sword. ARV Alternus, sword, value 0 out of 350, damage 9, hit chance plus 0.04, crit chance plus 0.07, 15% chance to heal 1 HP on kill. He couldn't help the smile from creeping onto his lips. Okay, so he was fighting to save the universe by playing a game. One of two possibilities were true. A, he'd been trapped in a cave-in back in the silver mine, and all of this was a hallucination as his brain died from suffocation. Or B, everything this artificial intelligence from the future of an alternate dimension said was the truth. Jack shrugged. It didn't really matter which it was. Might as well have some fun before he died. He hopped to his feet.
Right. There is a lot I still don't understand, but it seems like we're going to be stuck together for a while, yes?
Eventually, I'll be able to have more subtle influence over the world, such as making the sword belt and scabbard intangible and invisible on command.
That'll be nice,
Jack said as he began walking toward the next clump of chitinous bloodmen.
I'm seriously surprised I haven't impaled myself in my sleep. Besides speaking in multiple complete sentences, is there anything else you can do now?
Yes, actually, and you'll love this. Check your path panel, Jack.
He stopped and pulled up the information. Path, Dimensional Blade 1, Double Strike, activated 5 mana, main hand damage times 2. Your blade becomes a blur, attacking the target twice in a single moment. Path, Data Mining 1, Mining Laser, channeled, 2 mana per second, main hand damage per second. Skill.repeating rewrite _version 1.58 include error.correction target total local _user unif. Path, Data Summoning 0 out of 350. Call Alt. Activated once per entrance. Read.mainhand remote deletion PR. Summon ARV Alternus to help in the tower.
Summon ARV Alternus. What the hell is this?
Your third path, Jack. I saw an opening in the code to amend a summoning skill to your paths. You are going to be the hero this world needs.
Are you serious? Alt, please don't say cheesy crap like that. How does this new ability work?
Activate it.
Jack's brows came down as he focused on the ability name and tried to actively call Alt. There was a pinpoint flash of light off to his right, and when he turned to look, he saw a model spaceship hovering in the air.
No way,
Jack muttered as the sleek ship smoothly floated closer to his face. It was about the size of a 2-liter bottle, and the gunmetal gray vessel had 4 stubby wings, 2 in the front and 2 near the back. They ended in sharp blue flames like a butane lighter. The thrusters adjusted their angle as the ship strafed around Jack in a circle and he tracked it with his head. By the size of the windows peppered along the ship's wedge-like hull, the actual ARV Alternus was much, much larger. Long protrusions that must have been antennae spread out across the exterior, among other complex components and fine details. When Alt spoke, the sound no longer came from inside his head, but now originated from the badass hunk of metal floating before him.
Congratulations, you now have a minion.
This is what you look like, huh?
Correct, but at 2,100 to 1 scale.
What can you do?
Jack asked, appraising the highly detailed toy ship for weapons.
Please tell me you can shoot lasers or something.
Although I am designated as a research vessel, I am outfitted with the means to protect myself. My virtual presence here is capable of dealing minor long-range damage, although I'm fairly certain I can add functionality as you feed me more blades.
Jack looked down to pull his sword from his scabbard and did a double take at the leather flap strapped to his waist. Elaborate blue embellishments were now sewn into the edges that had not been there before. He tilted the sheath forward and gripped it with his left fist while he drew his blade. The long, sharp edge was now a deep black metal, and the hilt had gained an ornate red gem in its center. He tried a few practice swings, and his new floating spaceship friend drifted safely out of range. After feeling comfortable with the heft of his ever-upgrading weapon, Jack returned it to its sheath and continued stalking toward the next group of enemies. A wicked half-grin appeared on his face.
Come on, Alt. After we kill the Floor 2 boss, we're going for Floor 3.
The tiny spaceship caught up easily with Jack's long strides and elegantly spun to face him, then began hovering backward at a speed equal to Jack's gait.
Maybe you should see how things end up after we face the Floor 2 boss?
Maybe,
Jack echoed, but inside he felt fired up.
You said you needed more risk-taking humans, right?
Correct. And losing you would be catastrophic to the universe.
So, there are humans in your alternate universe?
Jack asked after a handful of paces along the soft, furry ground.
Your biological makeup is 99.9998% similar, so they must have evolved slightly differently than the humans here.
Was there stuff like America, Star Wars movies, and McSanders meals in your universe?
I can confirm the first two, but what's a McSanders meal?
Alt asked, the ship dipping a little as if looking at the ground for clues.
You know, a burger, fries, a drink, and a toy. I used to bug my parents for one every time we drove past those scarlet arches.
Oh, I see. In my universe's history, there existed a fast food restaurant named McRonald's, and its logo was lime green arches. The popular franchise chain was famous for their minty shamrock shakes.
Huh. My McSanders only had shamrock shakes around St. Patrick's Day.
I have no such religious event in my records, but it's possible that information is simply missing. Is this a holiday in your culture?
Alt flew up close to his face and seemed genuinely interested in the information. Jack waved him away as if the ship was a fly and shook his head.
Let's do this another time. We're close to this group. We should be planning strategy instead of comparing alternate reality fast food restaurants.
The small ship spun around and faced their next group of foes. There were two of the disgusting black insect creatures again, and both were down on their knees, sucking blood out of the ground with their needle arms. Jack pointed at the group.
Can you just go in there shooting? Can they hit you? Do you have hit points?
I do have hit points. Here, let me...
The ship's voice trailed off, and a moment later a new display flashed into existence within Jack's vision. Alt HP 10 out of 10. The moment he looked away, the information vanished, much like his own hit point display.
Interesting. You can modify my user interface.
Jack shook his head, trying to focus on the fight.
10 HP is okay, I guess?
Yes, for now. Also, if I lose them all, this summoned entity will dissipate, but no harm will come to me. I can only be summoned once per day, though, so if you lose me quickly, that's it. I'm out for the day.
Damage?
Jack asked, raising one eyebrow.
Your main hand damage value, divided in half, rounded down. Currently, that's 4. I can fire an electron pulse every 5 seconds.
Jack rubbed his chin.
Okay. How about I laser one, and you electron pulse the other one?
My range should be sufficient to fire twice before the monster reaches us. Sounds like a solid abuse of the distance.
Jack nodded and drew his blade.
Good. This way I only need to spend 1 mana to kill 2 of these.
The tiny spaceship rotated in place, facing Jack again.
Incorrect. Anything I eliminate counts as a party kill. In this situation, your current rest bonus will trigger twice and refund you 2 mana back.
Damn.
Jack said, surprised that his plan was much better than he thought.
Let's abuse the hell out of these bloodsuckers. You fire first, the one on the right. Then I blast the one on the left directly after.
Understood. Ready?
Ready.
Jack confirmed, pointing his sword outward. 2 bright yellow pellets of pure energy launched out from the miniature ARV Alternus like a pair of tiny suns, and there was a minor concussive bloop sound as the ship fired its weapons. The orbs of sparking light collided with one of the creatures, causing them both to pull their piercing needles and sprint forward. Chitinous Bloodman, -4, HP 2 out of 6. As planned, Jack willed his mining laser to activate, and a powerful beam of energy burst from his sword, obliterating his target. The remaining needle-armed Bugman sprinted across the fur-covered ground. Red blood spurted out of the thing's sharp appendages as it ran. It was closing the distance fast, and Jack readied his shield to intercept the monster if necessary. Until he was seriously wounded, keeping his new minion alive was the main priority. The chitinous Bloodman was about 10 steps away, and Jack could see the mandibles working on its horrid bug face. He resisted the urge to burn it with his death laser and stuck to the plan. True to his calculations, the sleek ship launched another 2 spheres of power into the charging creature, sending it into oblivion. 2 mana spent, 2 foes dead, and 2 mana returned.
We're unstoppable, Alt!
Jack cheered, looking for loot drops.
Remember, we are only on floor 2 of only 1 tower. Things will get much harder as we climb higher. There is a long road ahead of us.
Jack and his spaceship continued to clear out the rest of the fur-covered floor. They fought 4 more clumps of monsters and found a few more coins and items. There were no upgrades for Jack or blades for Alt, so he stashed the equipment into his inventory.
37 total value so far,
Jack said.
Not a bad pile of stuff, and we haven't even tackled the floor 2 boss yet.
The spaceship turned to face him.
I'm sure you noticed your carry limit has been augmented.
Yeah, I saw that. It's going to take me forever to add up all the values once we get higher up. I can't wait.
Would you find something like this useful?
Jack was about to ask what he was talking about when more values flashed in his peripheral vision. HP 23 out of 25, MP 30 out of 32, Alt HP 10 out of 10, Coins 22, Inventory value 37.
Oh yes,
Jack said, smiling.
This will work nicely.
He dismissed the information and searched around, but didn't see any more clumps of bugmen. Jack wondered where the floor boss was. The only thing different from the orange fur ground and gray sky was the massive floating shadow in the distance.
Hey, Alt,
Jack began and pointed his finger outward.
Is that what I think it is?
The spaceship rotated and faced the circular shadow ahead of them. Again, a reliable perspective was something Jack missed from his old life, but the object he had thought was the moon now appeared to be a house-sized, imperfect sphere.
I can detect the exit orb under its shadow. That is indeed the floor boss.
What the hell is it?
Jack said, taking a few tentative steps forward.
I believe it is a giant cat head.
Chapter 19.
How do we fight a floating cat head?
Jack asked. The monstrosity appeared to be hovering at least 50 feet off the ground.
With ranged attacks, obviously.
The miniature spaceship answered from his right as it tracked Jack's movements.
Obviously.
Jack repeated with a hint of sarcasm.
Keep your eye on the exit orb if it gets to be too difficult,
Alt said, and Jack's mood flipped from slightly worried to grim determination. His mind was set on defeating not only this boss, but the Floor 3 boss as well.
Okay,
Jack began.
let's split up. If you start shooting it, and then I hit it with my mining laser after, will it change targets and come for me instead because I'm doing more damage?
Possibly.
Spaceship Alt answered.
We can't be sure of anything regarding an unencountered foe.
Jack nodded.
Well, since this is only the Floor 2 boss, I think I can melt it down pretty quickly. We'll keep the same plan. You go wide to the right, I'll go left. We flank it, and when you see me wave my sword, you start shooting. If I can't pull the thing off of you, and it does whatever horrible thing it does, I'll just make a break for the exit orb.
It's your call,
Alt said. Jack turned from the sphere in the sky to face the spaceship at his side.
That's good to know, but I'd still like your opinion.
Given that we don't know the attack pattern, it's as good a plan as any.
Right, let's split now. See you after it's dead.
Alt remained silent and immediately broke his formation to angle right around the floor boss. The thing was farther away than Jack thought, and as he drew closer to the massive object in the sky, more details began to come into focus. It was facing downward, and the ears were pointing away from them. The part where its neck should be was perfectly round and covered with smooth orange hair. Jack started to make out the stubbly muzzle and whiskers, then he saw one enormous glassy yellow eye. It was wide open and unmoving, staring straight down into the equally furry ground. The bizarre floating head was unlike anything Jack had ever seen, and the thought of this colossal thing turning its gaze on him was highly undesirable. Eventually, Jack and Alt were in position, and with a few breaths to psych himself up, he gave the attack signal to his minion. 2 bright orbs launched from the tiny speck of a ship across the massive cathead shadow, and Jack watched as they zipped upward at a straight 45-degree angle into the giant cathead. The 2 electron pulses flashed against the side of the disturbing creature's face, and its muzzle opened to let out a howling screech that echoed across the flat landscape. Floor 2 boss, -4, 44 out of 48. Jack fought the urge to put his hands over his ears and cower. The terrible noise was deafening. Then he noticed a new status icon flash into existence in his peripheral vision. Fear, hit chance reduced by 50%, 10% chance to run over 10 seconds, 58 seconds remaining. This is too much to bear. Jack shook off the attack and focused on his roll. The massive thing had spun and was hovering slowly toward Alt. As soon as his spaceship fired another pair of tiny suns, Jack leveled his sword on the giant cathead and activated his mining laser ability. Floor 2 boss, -4, 40 out of 48. Floor 2 boss, -9, 31 out of 48. As Jack had predicted, the monstrosity rotated in midair and turned its bizarre gaze on him. Who knew what this thing would do if they couldn't kill it before it closed the distance, but Jack's ability did its damage quickly. He watched the enormous monster's hit points drain with every passing second. Floor 2 boss, -9, 22 out of 48, 13 out of 48, 4 out of 48. The insane yellow cat eyes began to glow, and the boss appeared to be charging some type of energy attack of its own. Floor 2 boss, -9, defeated. It took a net of 9 mana to destroy the floor boss, and the enormous cat head burst into a dazzling display of fireworks in an otherwise drab universe. Jack thrust his horribly overpowered sword up into the air and sprinted to meet Alt under the shower of glittering sparks.
I was worried at first. That was a walk in the park,
Jack said.
A Floor 2 park, yes,
Alt agreed. On the ground was a 5-foot warhammer that Jack quickly dumped into his inventory. If a dropped item was obviously useless, he was just going to loot it and move on. Then he jogged over to the orange furry ground to the golden boss chest and held out his hand. Floor 2 rewards, boss chest, worn leather boots, feet, value 6, defense 4. Bent carving knife, dagger, value 7, damage 4. Itchy woolen pants, legs, value 8, defense 1, magic power, plus 3. Jack smiled.
All right, 2 upgrades, and I can finally ditch these fished-up shoes.
He moved his new boots to his feet equipment slot and gained another 3 defense.
And 1 for you,
Jack said, sliding the knife over to his sword. He covered his eyes, but the flash didn't happen this time.
I was able to scale the opacity of the system-generated visual effect to 0%.
Oh, that's really nice. Thanks, Alt. Did you get anything from that knife?
No, I do not think Floor 2 items will be increasing the weapon's stats outright, but my value is now 7 out of 350.
Jack nodded as he pulled the itchy pants into his inventory.
Makes sense.
His eyes drifted over the wooden door with a burnt number 3 branded into its surface. Before he did anything, though, he checked his own stats. HP, 23 out of 25. MP, 21 out of 32. Alt HP, 10 out of 10. Coins, 28. Inventory value, 51. Even if he risked it and came back with nothing of value for the town, Alt's upgrades would totally be worth the trip. Jack's mind had long since been made up, and with a grin, he reached out and pulled open the door to Floor 3. His vision was nothing but whitewash for a moment, and then Jack found himself standing on a thin stretch of sand surrounded by a clear, shallow ocean. Dancing on the waves were bright sparks of reflected light, and his eyes were pulled up to see 2 yellow balls in the sky instead of 1. The heat baking down on him was slightly over the line into sweltering, and Jack used his hand to block the suns until his pupils adjusted. An array of vibrantly blue and pink seashells lay scattered along the edges of this narrow strip of dry land, and Jack was happy to be on one of the ridiculously beautiful floors. Alt was there with him, hovering near his right shoulder, and Jack watched the tiny ship slowly spin in place as if it were also taking in the surroundings. One leafy palm tree bent away from Jack and hung out over the ocean to his left. The relatively narrow path of sparkling sand led away from them, and he realized that they were standing on an island in the shape of a straight line. Ahead, Jack could make out a tiny figure standing on the only path, and if he squinted, it appeared to be a white-winged angel. Jack checked behind them, and he saw the obligatory exit orb plinth poking out of the sand just before it transitioned into the shallow ocean.
Let's clear the floor, my minion,
Jack said as he pushed his new boots forward up the sandbar. They felt slightly more comfortable than the ones he had received from Garl.
Yes, my master.
Okay, we aren't doing that,
Jack said, shooting the tiny ship a sideways glance.
I know. I was being glib.
Alt said with amusement in his electronic voice.
But I am excited to see where your brinksmanship will take us.
Straight to the top, my boy,
Jack said, pointing up into the cloudless blue sky stretching out infinitely above them. Jack felt noticeably better that there was someone else in the tower to talk with. It had only been a few days, and his mind went straight to Lex. She had been spending her days fighting alone for an unknown stretch of time. Years? Had she spent years fighting this random madness alone? He felt a darkening anger rise within and quickened his strides toward their first enemy. If Jack was able to leave the tower today as a level 4 hero, he was going to ask her to join his party for tomorrow's climb. As they got closer to the first enemy standing on the narrow sandy island, Jack was able to make out their enemy's form as a muscular lizard man, complete with rough, deep green scales and a thick tail. In addition to those features, the buff-looking fellow had a glowing gold halo over his head and white feathered wings sprouting from his back. Clutched between the creature's clawed hands was a serious-looking bronze trident.
A word of warning, Jack. This looks like a divine-type monster. They will take reduced damage from arcane and elemental attacks, such as your mining laser.
There are monster and attack types? Since when?
I'm learning some of this now that I can observe from the inside, but from the code I'm seeing, there are 4 basic types of wandering monsters that can be found in a tower: melee, nature, divine, and arcane. There is a circular effectiveness pattern detected.
Jack stopped and took a deep breath.
This is getting complicated. Wait, what the hell type was the crazy cat head?
Nature. The Floor 2 boss might not have been anything that could ever physically exist, but it was technically a beast. Melee attacks do well on nature types, but divine attacks would have been less effective. Your mining laser is arcane elemental. Also, many monsters have no affinity at all, granting no weakness or bonuses.
Interesting. Maybe you could keep your sensors going on that and fill me in before we attack anything?
You mean like what I just did?
The ship said, turning to face him.
Yeah. Come on and let's see if we can fight this thing. Let me know when you are in range. You start shooting and draw him toward us. Soften him up a little. I will intercept and go toe to lizard talon with him.
Understood,
Alt said. Jack hefted his wooden shield, trying to predict how fighting an angelic lizard man with a long trident was going to work. His sword's reach was probably going to be about half as long. The lizard man stood relatively still, staring straight ahead, waiting for someone to try and get past the small stretch of sand he was guarding. The width of the sandbar was about 10 feet across, but Jack could see the sandy bottom to each side through the crystal-clear water, and the shallow ocean continued to be only a few feet deep for as far as Jack could see. The tiny ship twisted its thrusters and slowed to stop about 30 yards from the humanoid creature, and Jack stopped a few feet in front of his spaceship minion.
Fire!
He ordered. There was a satisfying deep boop sound from over his shoulder as Alt launched his 2 orbs of light into the monster guarding the dry land beyond. Blessed Lizardman Defender, -4, HP 8 out of 12. The creature hissed and sprinted forward, his wings folding behind to reduce wind resistance. The Lizardman crossed the distance before Alt could fire again, and Jack met him with his shield held tight against his body. The Lizardman's trident slammed into the wood at full speed, and Jack felt the impact deep in his bones. Jack -4, HP 19 out of 25. He grimaced and shoved the spear up and away, then launched himself forward to stab his sword into the angelic lizardman's guts. The creature wore no armor, and Jack was able to land a deep jab square in his scaly foe's wide chest. Blessed Lizardman Defender -9. Defeated. Their enemy reared back and faded into nothingness, dropping a pile of coins in his passing. Jack bent over and snatched them up without even checking his new total. The amount was unimportant now.
They hit hard,
Jack said as he rolled out his shoulder.
Maybe I should try to dodge the next one.
I encourage you to try new things,
Alt responded. They moved forward along the strip of land that was floor 3, and the next enemy came up quickly. Where it stood, they found a larger, round patch of sand and a handful of palm trees.
Same plan as before,
Jack said.
This time I'm going to try something new.
Understood.
About 15 seconds later, Alt switched his thrusters to remain motionless. Jack took a few more steps forward and practiced the counterattack spin in his head a few times, trying to visualize exactly how Herrick had moved in the yard this morning.
Fire!
Jack ordered, grinding his boots into the sand and grounding his stance. The pulses of light whizzed over his shoulder and into the foe blocking their path. Blessed Lizardman Defender, -4, HP 8 out of 12. Like before, the monster's muscular legs tossed up a shower of sand behind him as he launched forward to attack his attackers. The sharply pronged bronze trident drew close, and Jack attempted to roll his front around the weapon, dodging the strike and then continuing to spin around with a powerful horizontal slice. But he moved too slow, and the trident tore through his side instead. Jack -7, HP 12 out of 25.
Ah!
Jack snarled and pulled sideways, away from the incredible pain as his flesh was punctured and torn apart. He looked down at his wound, but saw no damage whatsoever, and in fact, the pain itself was drastically receding. Alt was backing up as he fired 2 more orbs of energy into the lizard man's face. Blessed Lizard Man Defender, -4, HP 4 out of 12. But the angelic monster continued his charge. The trident was too low from his charging attack on Jack, so the big green creature pulled up his solid scale-covered shoulder and attempted to ram the miniature spaceship. The floating hunk of metal tried to slide sideways over the water, but it was clipped anyway. Alt -2, HP 8 out of 10. Jack pushed off the sand below his boots and rushed the monster from behind. The creature planted his webbed foot into the sand, attempting to completely reverse his direction, and due to his thick tail assisting in the transfer of momentum, the blessed lizard man was able to quickly spin back around. This time, Jack was the one pressing the attack, and he brought down his blade with a savage overhead swing. The lizard man hissed as he raised his weapon up to block and held Jack's sword at bay with thickly muscled arms. The divine monster's halo cast a yellow sheen on his polished scales, and the ridges around his ice-blue reptilian eyes cast slanted shadows, giving the monster an imposing scowl. Jack retracted his weapon and was able to parry the counterattack. The lizard man was at a maneuverability disadvantage, however, with his foe standing so close. He choked up on the trident and blocked the flurry of jabs Jack was sending his way. The nearby bloop noise indicated that Alt's electron pulse had recharged. Blessed Lizard Man Defender, -4. Defeated. Jack +1, HP 13 out of 25. A weathered chunk of wood fell into the sand from the dispatched divine monster. Jack sheathed his sword in disgust.
Great that I got a hit point back, but that was not what was supposed to happen.
I advise returning to the exit orb,
Alt said. Jack clenched his jaw as he bent down to pick up the item drop. Apprentice Focus, offhand, value 12, max MP +6. It was interesting, but Jack was too pissed about getting hit to focus on the offhand item, and he tossed it into his inventory. He stood up and surveyed the long sandy island that was floor 3. Ahead, he could see the path continuing into yet another divine lizard man, and maybe 2 or 3 after that. Jack was about to agree when his eyes passed over the palm trees clumped into the edge of this relatively spacious piece of land, and he noticed a half-buried treasure chest.
Let's see what's in here first,
Jack said, moving to loot the container. Floor 3 chest, driftwood longbow, bow, value 13, damage 5, plus +0.06 crit chance. Serrated short sword, sword, value 14, damage 5, plus +0.07 crit chance.
Well, here's a new meal for you.
Jack moved the short sword directly onto his main hand slot and then inspected Alt for upgrades. ARV Alternus, sword, value 21 out of 350, damage 10, hit chance plus +0.04, crit chance plus +0.08, 15% chance to heal 1 HP on kill. Jack sighed.
Some good news. Your shots do 5 damage now, correct?
Correct,
his miniature spaceship responded. He checked his stats one last time before deciding what to do next. HP, 13 out of 25. MP, 23 out of 32. Alt HP, 8 out of 10. Coins, 39. Inventory value, 76. He could at least take one more hit, but he had his minion spaceship too.
Okay,
Jack said, facing Alt.
Let's try one more heavenly lizard man. If I screw up my maneuver again, you fly into the thing's face, and I'll sprint for the exit orb. Maybe we can get one more blade out of him.
You plan on sacrificing me?
Yep. No good?
Jack asked.
I thought you said if you died it wasn't a big deal.
It's fine, Jack. No permanent harm will come to me. You're in command.
Great. Let's try this again.
Jack spun on his heel and headed down the length of sand toward the next foe. Once Alt was in range, the hovering ship slowed to a stop and waited for the signal to fire.
Wait,
Jack said, as an abusive strategy entered his brain.
Why don't you fly like 20 feet into the air and shoot them to death out of range?
I wish I could, but I still have to obey many game world rules. I can travel anywhere on the X and Y axis, but not Z, the height axis. As a flying minion, I must remain at your eye level.
Jack shook his head and took a few steps ahead of the spaceship.
Oh well. It was worth a shot. Give me a few seconds to get my mind right.
He focused on the lizard man standing with his sturdy legs spread wide, waiting for something to come along and engage him. Last time, Jack was a little too slow initiating his dodge and counterattack. This time, he set his boots into the sand again, but kept his weight held forward so he could push off with less time spent fighting his center of mass.
Fire!
He called out, and Alt obeyed. The bursts of energy flew directly into the lizard man's chest. In an exact repeat of the last two times, the divine monster launched forward with his trident held firm like a jousting knight. An instant before the barbed weapon struck Jack's shield, he attempted again to roll toward the jab to avoid the attack. He watched the times of the trident narrowly whiff past the dark jerkin stretched across his stomach. With the hint of a grin pulling at the corner of his mouth, Jack continued his momentum with a backhand slice through his enemy's angelic pure white wing and into his thickly scaled back. Blessed Lizardman Defender, -10, defeated. Jack came to a stop facing back the way they had come and saw their opponent vanish into thin air. As the lizard man faded away, a heavy pair of plated pants dropped onto the ground with a clatter.
That's how it's done.
Jack cheered, thrusting his sword up into the clear, extra sunny blue sky.
I take it we'll try again?
Damn straight,
Jack said, bending down to move the plate pants into his inventory. He knew he couldn't wear them, so he didn't even bother to check.
So much loot!
Indeed,
the spaceship said.
And I expect we'll find much more.
No time like the present.
A rush of visceral excitement ran through his mind when he replayed the near miss and his perfectly executed counterattack. He felt like a badass warrior. Then his thoughts wandered to his time in the yard. Both times he had fought there, he came out feeling more confident with his ability to fight, something he never really pursued in his old life.
Wait,
he said, stopping in the sand. Alt adjusted his thrusters to slow his momentum and face him.
What is it?
His minion asked.
I have numbers that represent dodge and hit chance, but does actual skill have anything to do with anything in here? It must, right? Or else why would a sparring yard even exist?
No, you're right. Natural aptitude, emotional state of mind, mental patterns relating to virtual muscle memory. All of these things contribute to a terribly long formula when calculating combat outcomes. Otherwise, this would be a turn-based game. Damage is always the same, however.
I need to see more of Kron,
he said, walking forward again.
Ooh, maybe I can get Lex to train me.
Jack and Alt repeated the same technique as they moved along the sandy stretch of land, and 3 more blessed lizard men fell without any more mistakes. They collected 2 more drops, another bow and an axe, and Jack stored them in his inventory with the other tasty morsels for the town. With the last lizard man dispatched, there was a long stretch of empty, narrow beach ahead, but Jack could see something huge moving farther in the distance.
Let's check out the floor boss,
Jack said.
I mean, we've come this far.
Fighting the floor boss will be very risky.
Jack smiled.
I know.
A few minutes later, they could clearly see the giant red-shelled crab aimlessly wandering on a much larger area of dry land. The massive creature was the size of a bus, and just above its close-set eye stalks was another golden halo. Yellow glowing runes covered its bright red shell as if they were painted on, and Jack had never seen anything like it. Something that was happening multiple times a day since he woke up in subroutine Sana.
The boss is also a divine type,
Alt said, stating the obvious.
How much of a drawback would it be to use my mining laser?
It depends on the enemy's affinity. A safe bet would be to assume 0 damage, but at this floor in the tower, maybe 50% reduction. Give me more resources, and I'll probably be able to tell you exactly how effective your attacks will be.
I got a bunch of mana back from killing those 6 lizard men, via the rest bonus. I can channel my attack for 14 seconds. 14 times for half damage, 5...
It's 70 damage spread out over 14 seconds, Jack. But that is if the boss stands still and lets you do it. And if the reduction is only 50%, could be more.
They crept forward as they talked, getting as close to the Floor 3 boss as they could without getting too close. The gargantuan crab had 2 claws, one much larger than the other, and Jack easily saw himself getting cut in half. Even in its relaxed state, the monster moved faster than he was happy with. Jack was starting to come to terms with the bitter reality that attacking this angelic crustacean might be the wrong move. That was until the creature randomly turned its back on them, and he saw a glowing yellow pearl affixed to its shell.
Alt, please tell me that obviously placed orb is the boss's weak point.
Chapter 20. The hovering spaceship drifted a bit closer to the divine crab, and although Alt had no eyes, Jack had the feeling he was squinting.
Perhaps I'd give your weak point assessment an 83% probability of being accurate.
Okay, we're going to fight this thing.
There was never a doubt in my mind,
Alt said dryly.
What's your plan?
Jack ran a few possibilities through his head, but it really just came down to smacking the thing in its ass.
You'll circle wide around it. Go over the water if you have to. Wait until its supposed weak point is facing you, and then shoot it. Depending on how many HPs this thing has, I'll either hightail it back to the entrance, or I'll run in and attack it. It's been a while since I've used Double Strike. If it does full damage, that'll be an instant 20 damage. It'll probably spin to face me, and I can hopefully get out of range before it pincers me to pieces.
Jack paused to rub his chin. He was distracted for a moment by the realization that his facial hair was not growing at all. He shrugged it off and faced his spaceship minion.
Then you shoot it in the ass again as I run. Please sacrifice yourself if it gets out of control.
There was a bit of a pause.
Understood. Please be careful.
When am I not careful?
Jack said with a sheepish grin. The spaceship slowly rotated around to face him, and Jack could have sworn he saw a single raised eyebrow.
Don't look at me like that.
Jack chuckled.
Go on, get into position.
His minion obeyed and circled wide around the red-armored angelic crab and waited for the monster to face directly at Jack. When the moment came and he heard the distant bloop of Alt's ranged weapon, a rush of adrenaline coursed through his body. Jack launched into action. Floor 3 boss -6, HP 69 out of 75. Jack almost decided to turn and run when he saw the thing's total hit points, but his stubborn nature wouldn't let him back down. Besides, the extra point of damage from Alt's electron pulse confirmed that it had a weak point. The crab boss spun in place to face the tiny spaceship out in the water. Jack was already halfway to the monster before the glowing pearl on its back turned to face him, and on a whim, Jack activated a 1-second mining laser on the weak point. Floor 3 boss -3, HP 65 out of 75. He lost 2 mana, but now he was sure that his long-range attack would be pointless on this thing, even when focused on the golden pearl. Luckily, the small amount of damage did not cause the crab to turn from its current target, the miniature spaceship, and Jack was able to catch up to the creature before it closed the distance to his minion. With intense focus, Jack slashed his sword down at the boss's weak point, activating Double Strike right at the moment of impact. His blade became a blur and sparks flew from the orb on the huge crab's back. Floor 3 boss -15, HP 50 out of 75. Floor 3 boss -15, HP 35 out of 75. Jack stood there dumbfounded. He had shaved a total 30 damage off in an instant. The giant red crab in front of him, however, was spurred into action by terrible agony, and it spun in place like a heavily armored spider. A moment too late, Jack remembered that he was supposed to be running away, and if the enemy hadn't been enraged, he might have been caught by its massive claw instead of getting bashed in the side and tossed into the air. Jack -12, HP 1 out of 25. He landed in a heap into the relatively soft sand and shook off his stun as the haloed crab monster closed in on him. Bloop! Floor 3 boss, -6, HP 29 out of 75. Jack blinked up at the two suns in the sky just as they were blocked out by the monstrously sized crab. He came to his senses and rolled to his side in the sand as its larger claw came crashing down where he had been a moment ago. He scrambled to his feet and took off running around its powerful skittering legs and away from the creature. Panic gripped Jack's gut as certain death followed behind him, and he considered sprinting for the boss's exit orb. He cast a glance behind him and noticed that the massive floor boss was only a few steps behind. They were so close, and if he could keep outrunning this thing—
Alt!
Jack yelled.
Keep shooting it in the ass!
He had no idea where the tiny spaceship was at the moment, but that didn't really matter. Jack put his head down and pumped his boots into the sand in an attempt to circle around the angelic crab. The creature skittered sideways to intercept him, but Jack changed direction, leaning hard to his right. He almost lost his footing, sliding around on the loose sand, but was able to avoid the massive claw as the crab slammed it down directly in his previous path. With a risky dive roll, Jack dodged its smaller claw on the other side and made it past the boss onto the long stretch of land heading back toward the entrance. He could hear the stabbing, scrabbling legs of the colossal crustacean behind him, but Jack never looked back. Instead, all his focus was on sprinting away from the creature tearing up the sand at his heels. Bloop! Floor 3 boss, -6, HP 23 out of 75. Despite the insanely close call, Jack let a smile pull at the corner of his mouth. If the monster kept chasing after him, Alt would whittle it down. If his loyal spaceship minion pulled the divine crab's ire, then Jack would double-strike its weak point again, ending the battle. The next 5 seconds seemed to take forever, but Alt fired into its back again. Bloop! Critical. Floor boss -10, HP 13 out of 75. That did it. Alt's critical strike pulled its attention away from Jack, and he heard the skittering noises recede behind him. Jack skidded his leather boots in the sand and then sprinted back toward the massive red crab with glowing runes painted on its shell. Alt must have detected what Jack was doing and stopped backing away from the massive monster. There was a metallic crunch sound, and then an alert flashed near the side of his vision. Alt, -20, defeated. Because the crab creature stopped to destroy his miniature spaceship friend, Jack was able to catch up and double-strike the pearl affixed to its shell. Floor 3 boss, -15, defeated. The unnecessary follow-up strike from his ability whiffed through empty air, but he needed to make sure the thing would die. Jack felt tingling euphoria pass through his body as he was elevated to Hero Level 4, and a shower of glittering motes washed over his head.
That was way too close to tragedy, Jack,
Alt said, his voice echoing within his head again. Jack took in a deep breath while soaking in the hot beauty that was this shallow ocean world. He bet Lex would have liked it here.
Yeah,
Jack said.
But here we are, laughing all the way to the bank.
Next time, I advise moving away from the angry beast after you slap its ass.
Jack let out a short laugh.
Next time,
he agreed. On the ground in front of him was another shield, except this one was made of metal and looked a lot like Kron's. Jack bent down to inspect it. Rusted door shield. Shield, value 14. Defense 6. Max HP +8. Dodge -2. The item had a red outline and was unusable to him. He shrugged and moved it to his inventory. It was the first item he saw with a negative modifier to it, but it did make a kind of sense. One would find it hard to be light on their feet carrying around such a huge slab of metal. The golden boss chest appeared over by the boss's exit orb, and along with it had appeared the door to floor 4. He gave the wooden door a glance, but there was no chance he was going to touch it. Jack collected the loot instead. Floor 3 rewards, boss chest. Backstab dagger, dagger, value 15. Damage 6, crit chance +0.1. +1 sneak. Sea salt robes. Chest, value 15. Defense 2. Max mana +10. Water abilities +3 damage. Coins 23.
Sneak? Water abilities? What is all this?
Finding good equipment is important, Jack.
Yes, I know this. How will this dagger affect you and me? Will I be able to go invisible now?
I don't believe so. Sneak is one of many character attributes. If you were more of a rogue or a thief class, this would probably augment a trait you already had or an ability on one of your paths. As it is, I'm not sure how this will translate to your, unique hero class.
Let's find out,
Jack said before he moved the dagger to merge with Alt. ARV Alternus. Sword. Value 36 out of 350. Damage 11. Hit chance +0.05. Crit chance +0.09. 15% chance to heal 1 HP on kill. +1 sneak.
It looks like it's stuck.
Jack said, smiling at his cheating sword.
Check your character panel.
Alt suggested, and Jack willed the information to appear before him. Jack, hero class irrelevant, level 4. Health 1 out of 25. Mana 14 out of 22. Defense 14, dodge 12. Main hand damage 11, offhand damage 0. Hit chance 0.9. Critical chance 0.1. Magic power 0. Sneak 1. Jack concentrated on his new attribute and a detailed information panel appeared. Sneak. This trait determines how successful you are at moving undetected.
Not really a surprise, but I'll take it,
Jack said, and reached for the exit orb.
Now, let's get out of here.
A flash of white later, he was standing under a cold gray sky instead of a hot blue one.
Jack!
Lex said, putting her hand on his arm after she looked him over.
You're near death.
Good to see you too.
He joked. Raya had come to greet them again, and he shot the freckled woman a wink. The shorter, golden-haired woman began to sing, but her dark eyebrows came down as she did, and he could tell she was having a hard time concentrating. The melody was nowhere near as sharp and as beautiful as before. Jack's hit points rose up to 7 out of 15 before she stopped abruptly. Her glassy eyes looked up into his, and he saw anger and disappointment there.
What's wrong?
He asked.
I made it to floor 4 and got tons of loot for the town.
She shook her head and pulled away. Without another word, Lex held her hand out to the input chest. Jack looked back over at Raya, who had her arms crossed under her ample bosom and her eyes down at the ground. Jack was at a loss. He moved to feed his items into the town chest. Before he did, he glanced up at the new interface that Alt created. Coins, 62. Inventory value, 136. It was his biggest haul yet, and he was disappointed Lex was acting so distant. He wanted to show her all this loot. With a shrug, he emptied his inventory. Was she upset that he had cut it so close? He did promise to not take risks. A flash of light from the fountain caught their attention. After the brilliant effect had receded, Jack saw that the weak jet of water was now spouting about a foot into the air.
What was that?
Jack asked. Raya broke her stun first.
It's a town level increase, Jack.
Lex blinked away her surprise and turned her eyes back to his. She looked like she was about to say something, then decided against it. The Bastion walked away instead, heading for the inn.
Let's go eat,
she said over her shoulder, and Jack was starting to get mad at her. Shouldn't this be a reason to celebrate? Raya locked eyes with his and gave him a sad smile before she followed her friend to the inn. Jack followed them through the door and sat down at a table with Lex and Raya, but the woman with the uniquely pointed ears just kept her eyes focused onto the table.
So, how were your days?
Jack asked, trying to move past whatever this was. Raya looked over at the sullen Lex and spoke up to fill the uncomfortable silence. The doughy-faced woman recounted her uneventful day guarding the wall, going into a surprising amount of detail. While she spoke, Jack's eyes kept coming back to Lex. She seemed to be lost in her own world. Demi came by and took everyone's order. The heroes booked their rooms, and the innkeeper's sharp eyes lingered on Lex and then bore into Jack before she went off to get their food. Jack really felt like he was missing something important here. He risked his life for these people and this town, and he felt like he was being punished for it. The three of them ate in relative silence, and Jack's anger at the woman sitting across from him, pushing her food around on her plate, grew to a breaking point. He wanted to say something horrible, but stopped himself. Old Jack might have made things worse. New Jack was going to do things differently. Maybe if he extended an olive branch...
Lex,
he began softly.
I think we should team up tomorrow. We could...
Never.
She cut him off, her squinting eyes snapping up to his.
I will never join someone like you in there.
Jack's brows came down as her words stung him sharply. Confused and hurt, he lashed out.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Lex stood abruptly and she looked down on him, barely able to keep tears from spilling from those eyes he had come to adore.
I'm done. Good night.
The Bastion turned and walked up the stairs to her room. Jack followed her with his eyes, his own anger boiling over. After the short, leather-clad woman was out of sight, he switched his attention on Raya.
You have to tell me what is going on. I'm feeding the town. It's exactly what she wanted.
The freckled woman, who had always been so cheerful, looked back at him with a blank expression.
It's more complicated than that for her, but it's not my place to talk about it.
What do you mean, not your place? You gossip nonstop about everything and everyone. You never shut up.
Things were spiraling out of control quickly. Raya's neutral face dropped, and he knew he had hurt her too. He wanted to feel bad, but at least he knew how he had hurt the heavy-set woman with the long braid sitting across from him. It was then he noticed that the inn around him had grown quiet, and the silence broke through his anger. Everyone was looking at him.
Raya, I'm so sorry,
he said, and then stood up. Without looking back, Jack exited the eye of the storm to get some fresh air. It was dark outside and cold, but it was exactly what he needed to cool off. Without really thinking, his feet took him to the fountain in front of the tower. Jack could still see the spurt of water rising higher than it had ever been, and fresh anger welled up inside him. He was really starting to like Lex, but finding out she was possibly crazy right when he was excited to show her what he had accomplished, right when he had hoped to fight by her side in the tower, the disappointment was maddening. Jack pulled out his sword and began wildly attacking enemies that weren't there. He told himself it was practice, but he was just blowing off steam. He hacked and flailed his weapon around, and right when the desire to be out of this ridiculous simulation grew to its highest point since he landed outside the accursed tower, he heard someone say, "Stop!" At first he thought it was Alt, but it didn't sound like him, and it was coming from behind. Jack spun and saw the soft orange glow of a pipe illuminating a thickly bearded face.
Herrick?
Jack said, lowering his weapon. The old man appeared to be sitting on the edge of the fountain, watching him. "You look like a damn fool with that thing." Jack sheathed his blade.
Apparently, I am a fool.
It was difficult to see in the darkness, but he could tell that Lex's father turned to face the fountain. "I see you are already level 4 and leveled up the town." Jack shook his head and laughed up into the dark sky.
Go ahead. Yell at me for helping you people. I dare you.
Herrick turned back to face him and took a long pull off his pipe. The orange glow lit up his face, and the wild look in his intense eyes had been replaced with scrutiny. "Come to the yard at 4 to close tomorrow morning. Maybe I'll train you to use your bizarre weapon." With that, the burly old man stood and walked into the night. Jack was dumbfounded again. He stood there with the salty sea wind pushing against his backside for a while before he headed back to the inn.
Alt,
He began as he walked through the darkness.
how does a hero become a bygone hero?
They age. The time is different for each NPC, but it's when they feel too old to venture into the tower, becoming a liability to their group. Someday you'll receive an interface menu asking if you would like to retire as well.
Thanks, Alt.
I'm here for you, Jack.
Jack pushed open the door to the inn and saw that it was mostly empty. There were a few townsfolk that he didn't recognize huddled around the blazing fireplace, and one tall, silver-haired woman standing at the bar. He walked up to his usual bar stool and sat down.
I'll have a rum and coke. Heavy on the rum.
I assume that's some type of alcoholic concoction.
Demi said.
Haven't had anything like that for a long time.
Jack nodded and looked her in her piercing blue eyes.
What did I do to piss her off?
Demi took in a deep breath and leaned against the back counter.
You disappointed her.
I'm feeding the town, growing stronger. She seemed happy when I came out the first time near death.
Jack struggled to keep his voice down. He shot a half glance over his shoulder, but no one was looking at him.
You broke a promise, Jack. Bravery and recklessness are two very close states of being. You proved you are no coward, but you seem to be out to prove it constantly.
The silver-haired woman leaned forward and looked him right in the eye.
She was beginning to like you, and by climbing the tower too fast, you reminded her of someone dangerous, someone she hates.
Who?
He asked. Demi leaned back again, tossing a slender hand up.
It doesn't matter. They aren't around anymore. But you are. You want my advice, Jack?
He nodded.
Very much so.
Don't risk everything on reaching the next floor.
Jack shook his head.
I get that, but did you know the town gained a level today?
Demi's eyes narrowed.
I did not. Jack, you are free to take my advice or leave it, especially when it involves Lex. Let me ask you one question. Were you one attack away from death on exit?
Yes.
Then you wagered every other floor's worth of items you could bring us, a whole lifetime of your contribution and your company, all of it, on just one more level. I don't know much about where you say you're from, but those types of heroes don't last very long in our world.
The way she phrased that last bit caught his attention. Suddenly, everything came into sharp focus for Jack. This wasn't his world, but he was the same in every world. He had been clapping himself on the back for turning over a new leaf and tempering his way of doing things. In his old life, he did the same thing every time. His mind latched onto an old memory from when he was a teenager. He and his girlfriend were standing on the edge of a steep drop in the New Mexico desert, looking out over the Rio Grande. The hot, dry wind had picked up, and she went to put her hair into a ponytail, but the black, stretchy band of elastic sprang out of her fingers and came to rest in the dirt right on the edge. Without a moment's hesitation, young Jack darted out and scooped up the hair tie. A few loose rocks and a shower of dirt fell into the depths below as his foot slipped, but he came back up to her, all smiles, holding her lost item. She screamed at him, called him an idiot, and began to cry. And just like what happened today, Jack got mad at her for being upset. Because he didn't fall. His girlfriend got mad at him because he risked his life for a 10-cent loop of elastic, and he reacted badly. But here he was in a new world, where life or death situations were going to be part of his daily routine.
Thanks for the talk, Demi. I'll see you for breakfast.
The older woman just nodded sagely as he pushed away from the bar and headed up the stairs to his room.
I like that innkeeper,
Alt whispered in his ear. Jack eyed Lex's closed door as he passed and waited to respond until his own door was completely closed.
Alt, can you work as an alarm clock?
Chapter 21.
Up and shine, Jack!
Alt's voice reached down into his dreamless sleep, and Jack jolted awake.
Up and shine?
He repeated, rubbing his hands over his bleary eyes.
It's rise and shine where I come from.
I'm going to start a catalog of our dimensional differences.
Jack's virtual imaginary friend responded within his mind. He checked the time and saw that he had 15 minutes before he was supposed to meet Herrick in the sparring yard. He re-equipped his armor and quietly headed down the stairs into the common room, but not before pausing to stare at Lex's door for a few heartbeats. He expected the inn to be empty at this hour, but Garl and Demi were talking by the bar.
Jack!
Demi began.
Come over here, would you?
Sure,
He said.
but I need to meet someone at the wall for training soon.
He got a slight head tilt from the ordinary stoic innkeeper, but she kept her curiosity to herself.
Hey, Garl.
Jack said, and shook the old fisherman's rough outstretched hand as he approached.
Jack, it's good to see you. I suppose this is your doing?
Jack was confused for a moment before a trade window opened from Garl. Trade offered Garl, fresh crab, meat, cooking. Then he was even more confused.
Why are you giving me a crab?
Garl and Demi exchanged a look before the stocky fisherman elaborated.
The town leveled, Jack. The stairs to the beach are back, along with this new catch from the sea. I came here to warn Demi before Sol wakes up. He'll extort the town over this new commodity.
Demi put it into crystal clear terms.
If I get this ingredient before breakfast, the two of you will have a better rest bonus for the day.
Jack moved 30 coins over to Garl's trade window and hit accept, but the other man shook his head and canceled the trade.
I have to sell this to the wharf master, Jack.
I still don't understand why.
He responded, and then moved the coins over to Demi instead. Once the black lacquer trade panel appeared, Jack tapped the green gemstone signifying that he accepted the transfer.
Is this for the crab?
Demi asked, one of her eyebrows arched.
No, it's for last night's advice,
Jack said.
Spend it on what you want. I need to run, though, so...
Demi reached out and accepted her blank side of the deal.
Great,
Jack said with a smile, and then waved to both of them before heading out of the inn. Alt began to speak in his mind as he jogged in the cold morning darkness.
Can you believe the town now has access to crab meat? I mean, Blackmoor Cove is a coastal town after all, and seafood being a staple of such a location leads to lofty chances that the fishermen would still have pulled out fresh crab after the level up, even supposing the Floor 3 boss was a giant cathead instead, but—
Alt!
Jack interrupted the stream of chatter assaulting his brain.
The current wharf master said the town picked him for the job. How does that work exactly?
The NPCs follow the rules of the game world, and it seems if there are no leaders present, the system will randomly assign townsfolk to vacant positions. Give me more resources, and we may be able to do something about that.
Why are there no leaders in Blackmoor?
The town has lost far too many levels. There are no governance buildings. Therefore, no townsfolk can fill the role and impart intelligent guidance.
What level is the town now? I never saw a panel pop up or anything.
Focus on the fountain, but it's now at level 2.
Jack jogged the rest of the way in silence and found Herrick standing out on the path waiting for him. As Jack came to a stop, the heavily armored and horned Kron appeared from the shadows cast by the rising sun and wordlessly stepped into the area designated as the yard. Jack turned his eyes back to Lex's father.
You are baking in your bad habits by training yourself, Herrick said. Before I get to fixing you,
I need to know you have the smarts to learn. Jack blinked. The bearded old man seemed clear-eyed and in control for a change. It was also the first time he had seen the guy without his pipe. Lex's father continued. You'll step into the yard with Kron. You get to make the first move. If it's the right one, and you've a melon in that skull, I'll invest my precious time into you. After the third wrong move, you're a waste of everyone's time. That's the deal. Jack looked over Herrick's leather-armored shoulder and saw Kron standing in the sparring yard with his massive shield, waiting. He locked eyes with the old man again.
No hints?
Herrick snorted, and a bit of snot shot out of his bulbous nose out onto the ground. He then crossed his arms and turned to face the sparring arena. Jack nodded and equipped his shield as he stepped over the twine and into the tromped-down dirt of the sparring yard, gaining the familiar status effect. The giant of a man standing in front of him looked like he could break all his bones with his pinky. Jack gripped his blade tightly and squinted, trying to think what the right first move was. Something out of place caught his eye, and he glanced over to find the teenage girl he had seen before in the boat by the docks. It took a moment, but his brain recalled that her name was Haley. She was standing among some of the stone rubble from the broken wall, and Jack had a feeling that no one else knew Soul's daughter was there. Her expressionless light gray eyes remained locked on his, and Jack shook off the unease she radiated. He needed to focus on the 8-foot pile of iron across from him. The only viable attack for the heavily armored Kron was the same attack he used before. But Herrick had witnessed that fight. It didn't seem like the right answer now. Yet neither did walking up and swiping with his sword randomly at the colossal Kron. 10 seconds! Herrick yelled out. Inaction will count as a first move! Jack swore under his breath and held out his sword. With a thought, he triggered his fiery mining laser. This time, however, Kron did not just take the attack. The man encased in metal rushed forward much faster than Jack expected and simply ate up the damage Jack was dishing out. Jack broke off his attack and brought up his shield to mitigate some of the damage he was about to receive, but it didn't matter. Jack, minus 74, HP, 1 out of 15. He shook off the hit and sat up from his new position outside the arena. Wrong move, Herrick said. 2 more tries. Jack stood up, dusted himself off, and got back into the sparring yard. Kron had returned to his starting position and stood waiting for Jack to make the right move. What did that crazy old man want from him? Perhaps using his abilities was considered cheating. He did come here to learn to use his blade, not how to activate a point-and-shoot skill. Jack rushed forward, and Kron instantly pushed off the ground to meet him in the middle. Again, sooner than he expected, Jack was tossed out of the yard and landed hard, square on his back. Wrong again, Herrick said. 1 more mistake, and you're on your own.
You people are all crazy,
Jack said, getting up and stomping back into the ring.
Always expecting me to know your rules without telling me a damn thing.
Herrick and Kron continued to remain silent. Jack stood with his blade drawn and his round wooden shield up, thinking. There wasn't much time to work this out, and this was his last shot. He shook his head and sighed. Was training with this annoying old bastard really that important? Movement caught his eye, and he saw the wharf-master's daughter hitch her thumb over her shoulder once. If he hadn't known better, Jack would have thought she was an umpire calling an out. Then Demi's advice, Lex's anger, and his old team lead, Stevens, all came to the front of his mind. They were all telling him to give up and walk away from an enemy he had no business fighting. It went counter to the very center of his being, but this had to be the lesson they were trying to teach him. Jack sheathed his sword and stepped backward out of the sparring yard's influence. Very good, Jack, Kron said in his deep, rumbling voice. He exited the ring with a nod to Herrick and walked off toward the stone archway that served as the town's main gate. Lex's father stepped up to Jack, his clear eyes pinning him down. After a moment of scrutiny, the old man began to nod slowly.
Sometimes, just staying alive is a victory.
Herrick spoke quietly, again out of character. Jack could tell that there was something more to this, something that distracted the old man and pulled his attention internally. Jack used the old warrior's inattention to give Haley a smile or a nod or something. Without her, he might not have figured out this trick answer. But when he looked to the shadow where she had been silently standing, there was nothing. The girl in the burgundy dress was nowhere to be found. Herrick continued.
If you live, you can always climb again.
The old man's glassy brown eyes hardened as if he remembered Jack was standing in front of him.
I still have my misgivings about that disturbing weapon you have, yet I must recognize an advantage when I see one. You are giving the people of Blackmoor Cove hope for a future. You are giving my daughter hope. And if you die in there because you think you are invincible, it will erase any hope and be the final death knell for this town. Do you understand?
Jack nodded.
Yes, sir.
Herrick crossed his thick arms.
Good. Now I want you to—
Attack! Attack! He was cut off when one of the guards on the wall began to scream his head off. Herrick looked up to the guard and then back down at Jack.
Follow me,
the old man ordered. They both trotted to a stop next to Kron standing in the archway, his sword and massive shield both drawn. Jack followed his gaze and saw what he thought were 3 inside-out silverback gorillas charging toward the town. He took a moment to really look and noticed some major differences. Besides the purple and black exterior dripping globs of corruption as they ran, their whole head was a tooth-filled mouth and their hands ended in long hooked blades.
Jack, take one with your magic fire,
Kron yelled, breaking Jack's open-mouthed stun.
I'll taunt the other 2.
Jack snapped his mouth shut, drew his ARV Alternus, and fired his death laser at the monstrosity on the far right. Lesser demon spawn, -11, HP 33 out of 44. He held the beam for 3 more seconds before his target vanished in a swirl of dust. The other 2 disgusting creatures had closed to about 15 yards away when Kron let out a challenging roar. A clear sphere of shimmering light radiated out from the heavily armored man as if Jack could see the sound waves from the shout. The Guardian then ran out to meet his foe, both of which now only had eyes for Kron. Jack saw him smash one with his shield. There was a terrible wet crunch, and the dripping monster sailed through the air. The other demon slashed its 2-foot claws at Kron's right side, but the huge man brought up his own sword to parry a flurry of attacks. Somehow, between the rapidly slashing claws, Kron stabbed his blade directly into its wide mouth, erasing it in one hit. The second creature had recovered and tore up the ground as it rushed back at Kron. The big man took the first hit on his shield, then hacked downward in one fluid motion, destroying the last attacker. Kron scanned the field outside the wall before sheathing his blade and unequipping his shield. With a soft clanking, the horned guardian came to a stop in front of Jack and Herrick.
We'll see more attacks now that the town is leveling up.
Aye, Herrick agreed, nodding, his long bristly beard sliding up and down his chest. Jack sheathed his sword.
Why did you need me to blast one? You could have easily taken all 3.
I might have lost HP facing 3 enemies at once. You lost a bit of mana. You'll gain it back when you eat breakfast.
The horned man turned his head back to look out to the horizon.
Now you can see why I must stay here. Almost all of these townsfolk guards would have been ripped apart by just one of those lesser demons.
Jack looked back out onto the sprawling field of thick green grass stretching out beyond the wall.
We've work to do, Jack,
Herrick said, and turned away from the entrance arch. Lex's father took him back to the sparring yard and spent the next hour drilling Jack in the use of his shield. Herrick set up a pattern of high, middle, and low attacks, and they practiced the sequence over and over. One of the first things Jack learned was that he should be holding his buckler away from his body so his arm could absorb more of the force, like a spring. This way, he was more frequently able to mitigate more of the damage taken from successfully blocking an attack. At the very end, Herrick altered the pattern and hit Jack in the face with his wooden training sword. It stung. Jack -6, HP 9 out of 15.
What?
Next time, Herrick interrupted him, you'll see past the lie and watch me instead.
The old hero waved one of his huge, gnarled hands in Jack's direction.
Go get your rest bonus, and don't die!
Jack rubbed his face, but the pain was already gone.
Thanks, Herrick. Same time tomorrow?
The old man grunted, gave a slight nod, and then walked away. He took that as a yes and started heading back up the dirt path towards the inn. The morning sun was still to his right, and the impossible tower stretched into the clouds ahead. Jack's eyes turned downward as one black boot fell in front of the other. The lush green grass hemmed him in to either side, and he felt his mind wander as his body settled into the monotony. Everyone was always trying to change him, and typically, as soon as he felt that get-your-shit-together attitude from someone, he was gone. Something was different now. It went beyond being trapped in this virtual battle zone. This was a real life-or-death situation. People depended on him now, and he had continued to think about this life as a video game. It took a few people hammering on him from different angles, but the recent lessons from those on the brink of the abyss combined with the ancient flares of anger he'd received from the people in his past began to break through. The restless, molten maelstrom that was his core hardened into something more useful at that moment, something deadly, shaped from the mold of responsibility. Jack pulled open the wooden door to the Eye of the Storm and found Demi and Lex at the counter.
Ah, Jack,
The silver-haired innkeeper said quickly.
I'll be back in a few minutes with your meals.
He nodded and approached his normal stool at the bar next to Lex. He hadn't known her long, but she seemed much more rigid than was normal. A moment of awkward silence filled the space between them while Jack thought of the right thing to say, but Lex broke it first. The woman with pointed ears turned her large golden eyes up to his.
I'm sorry about last night.
She began.
Don't.
Jack said, raising up his hand, and held her eyes for a moment.
Lex, I need you to understand that I am not from your world. Swords, monsters, hit points. All of this is something out of fantasy from my perspective. But I see now. I truly see what is happening here, and what I am to this town.
He paused, trying to figure out how to phrase what he wanted to say without pissing her off again, but a bit of wisdom he'd heard earlier seemed like the perfect argument.
Please hear me out,
he began.
I still want us to join up in the tower today. No, Lex, I need to join up with you. This is a new world and a fresh slate for me to learn to be something better. I'm only baking in bad habits when I go in alone.
Wait.
She said, her dark eyebrows coming down.
You know I can make it to floor 5 without being a liability.
Jack said quickly, then shut his mouth.
No.
She blinked.
I mean, I know you could, but have you been speaking to my father?
Jack swallowed.
Yes. He's training me in the morning now.
Lex's already large eyes went wide, then the shadow of a smile tugged on her lips.
Baking in old habits,
She repeated.
It's something my mother...
The bastion broke off and turned her eyes to the floor, tears welling up. Jack reached out and put his hand on hers. Lex turned her beautiful face up to his, and he could see she was crying from reliving a good memory. She wiped the wetness from her face as she nodded briskly.
I'll take you. I'll show you.
Jack smiled and squeezed her hand. Lex turned it around, lacing her small fingers through his, and he felt the warmth of her palm on his. They had a small, wonderful moment alone before Demi came spinning out of the curtain and they dropped hands.
New item today, thanks to our 2 climbing heroes,
the innkeeper said as she placed a bowl in front of each of them. Lex leaned in close and sniffed.
Is this crab salad?
I don't know.
Demi joked.
Why don't you try it?
Both Lex and Jack dug their bent iron forks into the pile of fresh-smelling seafood. He twirled his utensil and skewered some poached fish, crab, and seaweed. He stuffed the pile past his lips, and it was like the ocean exploded in his mouth. The crab was sweet, the fish was salty, and the seaweed was slightly bitter, and it all worked. Lex moaned next to him and went limp in her chair. Jack nodded in agreement.
This is really good.
And expensive,
Demi added.
Saul was in rare form this morning.
A scowl appeared on Jack's face at the wharf master's mention, but it only lasted until he forked the next heap of seafood salad into his mouth. The heroes finished their meal quickly, and Jack was delighted to see his rest bonus for the day. Rest bonus, plus 20 health, plus 15 mana, plus 2 defense. Gain 1 mana per kill. Duration, exit. A bounty from the sea to better your battles. They both thanked Demi and left the inn together. Once they were outside, Lex turned to face Jack.
We go to floor 5 and then exit. You never leave my side or my sight.
Her golden eyes searched his, daring him to argue.
Today, you're the boss,
Jack said, giving her one sharp nod, then bounced his hip against hers.
We'll be attached at the hip.
She gave him a half smile, and then he watched as all of her clothes were replaced with tight-fitting black leather armor. Her golden eyes lost focus, and then he saw a new interface panel open in front of his vision. Group invitation, Lex, Bastion. Jack could either accept or decline, and he quickly accepted. As soon as he did, a new piece of information inserted itself in his heads-up display, causing the whole list to flash once. Jack, HP, 35 out of 35, MP, 37 out of 37. Lex HP, 270 out of 270. Alt HP, 10 out of 10. Coins, 32. Inventory value, 0. Together they walked toward the tower door, and Jack wondered how he was going to explain his talking spaceship friend to Lex. Chapter 22. The flash of light receded, and Jack was back in the tower facing a new Floor 1 layout. At first, he thought he was back home in some alley in an unknown city, but that familiar feeling faded quickly. Red brick walls and white mortar stretched up about 12 feet to either side. The flat ground was unmistakably asphalt, but it was pure black and soft, as if it had been poured recently. Although there was ample space between the walls and nothing but blue skies above, the maze-like nature of this floor still made him feel claustrophobic. The blonde Bastion was next to him, and the exit orb was in its standard place behind them, nestled into a dead end.
Follow me and stay behind,
Lex said as she held her shield out and crept forward.
Actually,
Jack began, and the Bastion spun on him, her straight hair flipping out from the motion. Her golden eyes bore into his. He held up his hands.
Whoa, it's not what you think. I'm totally going to listen to you. Lex, I need to tell you that I recently acquired a third path.
Her expression softened, and she lowered her shield arm.
What? That's not possible.
It's probably easier if I just show you,
he said, and then addressed an empty space ahead of them.
Come on out, Alt.
The air shimmered for a moment before the miniature spaceship named ARV Alternus appeared. Lex's small mouth hung open, and Jack got to see her tiny teeth again. He really couldn't help but be constantly distracted by how cute she was.
Greetings, Lex. I am ARV Alternus, but as Jack has already denoted, you can call me Alt.
What? How?
Lex began to stammer, and the tiny badass spaceship adjusted its thrusters to float a bit closer to the group.
Allow me to dissolve some of your confusion, my dear Bastion.
Alt began, and Jack crossed his arms, glad that he didn't have to do this.
I am an intelligent energy that has been helplessly watching over subroutine Sana from the outside like a guardian spirit, and bound to not interfere as the corruption spread and destroyed the universe that I hold dear. As Jack fell into my domain, I was able to attach a part of myself to his soul in the form of his scabbard, and now finally have some impact on the destiny of this existence. My purpose here is to help Jack push out the tendrils of corruption strangling your world.
Lex slowly turned her big eyes from the spaceship to Jack. He gave her a shrug and nodded. Everything he said was relatively true.
Why are you made of metal?
This is my true form,
Alt said. Jack jumped in.
To me, he looks like a tiny vessel of war, and he can shoot orbs of light that deal damage. Damage that grows with my cheating sword.
Lex took a few steps back and leaned against the red brick wall near to where she was standing. She didn't take her eyes off of the spaceship, and Alt spun to track her movements. Jack continued.
I wanted you to know all the tools at your disposal because you are going to be calling the shots. I can only summon my minion once per day.
Lex shook her head slowly.
No wonder you've been climbing so fast.
Jack put his hands on his hips.
This is actually the second day I've had him. Alt has been gaining abilities as I feed blades to my scabbard, and this little guy popped out yesterday.
It's the same principle as feeding the town,
Alt quickly added.
Though my upgrades are permanent.
So, you can serve as a long-range damage dealer?
Lex asked, a dark eyebrow raised.
Correct. 5 damage every 5 seconds at the moment.
Lex pushed off the wall and started firing off questions.
How many hit points? What's your defense? Any other abilities?
Jack spoke before his minion could answer.
Alt, can you fix up her interface like mine?
My what?
Lex said, alarm evident in her voice.
Yes.
Alt said, turning back to face the hero in question.
Lex, if you don't like this, I can always remove it again.
The leather-clad blonde woman flinched, and Jack saw her eyes focus on something up and to the left.
Jack, I can see your current hit points, and Alt's.
You okay, Lex?
Jack asked, taking a step closer to her. Was this too much? But a warm smile broke out across her face as she locked her eyes on his.
It's good, Jack. This should make keeping an eye on your HPs much easier. Oh, and it's going to be so useful as a healer.
Glad to be of service,
the miniature spaceship said as its nose dipped slightly.
This... you...
Lex stammered again.
Alt, you're amazing. I'm having a hard time making sense of what you are, exactly.
Now, he's here to help us shoot stuff,
Jack said.
After we feed him a bunch of blades and get him to the next level? We don't know. But what I do know is that we have a real chance here to loot the tower and get out safely. I've been pretty good at that first part, but you're going to have to help with the second part.
Jack reached out his hand toward Lex. She looked down at it, then stepped forward and took it with her own. This time, Jack wore cloth gloves, and she wore leather, but the physical connection still felt marvelous on his fingers.
Are you ready to clear the first floor?
He asked. Her beautiful face hardened, and she nodded.
Great,
Jack said, letting her hand go.
Lead the way, Bastion.
Follow me. Stay behind,
she repeated, and then began moving down the only open path. Jack looked up and saw what seemed like a typically blue sky. There were wisps of clouds and a bright yellow sun straight above, sending down a blanket of warmth over the black asphalt. Nothing changed for a while as they moved through the high brick walls, and his eyes were drawn to Lex's shoulder-length blonde hair as it cascaded over her dark leather armor, shining brightly under the sun. He felt a wave of happiness wash over him to be with her today. Then she stopped abruptly, and Jack looked up. A wall was straight ahead, and the path split to the left and the right.
Wait here.
Lex said.
Let me scout.
Jack really wanted to tell her that this was only floor 1, and between the 3 of them it shouldn't be a problem, but he nodded instead. The short bastion crept forward, peeked along both options, then came back to Jack and Alt.
The path on the left holds a chest. The path on the right continues but is blocked by a monster.
Might I suggest taking the first shot?
Alt offered.
Drawing it to you?
Lex considered and then nodded. She turned her eyes to Jack.
Okay, but let me take the front when it comes. I am built for defense. You two flank it after I have its attention.
You got it,
he said.
I understand this is overkill, Jack, but if we are to fight together, we need to practice together. No baking in bad habits. I'm a bastion, and you're the damage dealer. Alt's a damage dealer. I block and heal. You both will bring them down. This is the way we'll survive higher floors.
I obey Jack's commands,
Alt said. Jack waved his hand, dismissing her fears.
Hey, I get it. You're the tank of our group.
What's a tank? Like a tankard?
She asked, confused.
No, never mind.
He turned to his minion.
Alt, when Lex says attack, you shoot whatever is around the corner and then come back behind me. Auto-attack after.
Understood,
he said. Lex faced forward, pulled up her shield, and then said,
Attack!
The miniature spaceship silently glided forward and turned to the right after hitting the intersection. 2 orbs of light blooped out and raced ahead to impact the monster blocking the path. Living Kite -5, defeated.
Oh, what was that?
Lex said, straightening up.
Was that its name?
Yeah,
Jack answered, disappointed he didn't get to see the living kite.
it's a damage display. If Alt hadn't killed it, we'd see how many HPs were left.
So sorry to disappoint with my one-shot kill,
The spaceship said sarcastically as he floated back to the group.
But he's right, Lex. It's similar to an ability you might have heard about called Scan. I'm able to grant the ability to anyone in Jack's party.
This is madness.
Lex said, questioning her sanity again. Jack crossed his arms.
That's what I've been saying. But let's go loot that chest. What do you say?
Yes.
Lex said, blinking away her swirling thoughts.
Here's what we should do for loot. Upgrades have priority, and you obviously will have all of them for quite a few levels. Once your inventory fills up, I'll start holding the overflow. Then we start replacing the lower value items with higher ones until we leave.
Lex?
Jack said.
I may have yet another mind blow for you. I can hold over 2 billion items.
Her dark eyebrows came down.
2 what?
Jack was worried she might have never heard of a number that big, and Alt thankfully stepped in to explain.
Jack could pick up every item dropped in the tower up to floor 100. Even if he did that 100 more times without emptying his inventory, he still would only be filling a small fraction of the item slots he has available.
Jack gave her a big smile.
Merging with this benevolent entity here really gave me some nice gifts.
Lex sucked in a deep, shuddering breath when she realized she had stopped breathing.
Jack,
She began.
you're an impossible person. You shouldn't exist.
Not irrelevant, you mean?
He joked, trying to lighten the mood.
Yeah, that was my fault,
Alt said, hovering close.
I wish I'd picked something that sounded more appropriate. I was in a rush, and creativity really isn't my strong suit, but I might be able to change it at some point.
Maybe.
Jack said, feeling like it was the wrong thing to do.
But let's not worry about that now. Now we loot.
They continued to sweep the maze-like floor, and Alt was sent out to destroy all the enemies they came across. The next one they found, Jack had to sneak a look at what they were killing. Bobbing over the asphalt, he saw a rainbow-colored kite with human-like eyes and mouth. There was no wind in between the brick walls of this floor, but the diamond-shaped stretched fabric bounced along, tracing a small path as it guarded its small section of floor 1. With Alt taking the lead and autonomously destroying everything in their path, Jack and Lex had time to just stroll behind and talk.
So,
Jack began.
this random layout isn't so bad.
I've seen worse.
I'll bet. Can you top floors and walls made of human skulls and giant plague rats everywhere?
She looked up at him.
I came across a floor 4 once that was nothing but waist-high blood. The wandering monsters were balls of pus infecting me with a negative status that slowed movement, and the boss appeared to be a demon fetus.
Damn,
Jack said.
You win.
I'm more interested to hear about where you're really from.
Lex said, looking straight down their path again.
This whole time, I thought you were unstable and odd. But I'm beginning to realize you really are from somewhere outside of this world.
Jack considered her question carefully. Telling her the reality of this situation was probably a bad idea. 1, because he wasn't really sure what was real, and 2, it wouldn't help anything. Telling Lex that he was from the real world and she was just a character in a video game would only anger her. Or, if she believed him, send her into a spiral of self-doubt and depression. No. At that moment, Jack vowed to never tell her, or anyone, the real story about what was happening until this world had been scrubbed of all corruption. Maybe not even then. He felt a small flutter of agreement from Alt within his mind. Jack took a deep breath and looked down into Lex's golden eyes.
I am from a whole different universe. A place where there was no corruption, no monsters or magic abilities. I was a surveyor, a cave mapper in a silver mine. I had a sister and a mother and a father that I chose to be far away from because I always needed to be moving. Always looking for something interesting to do with my life. There's not much to tell, really. My world was boring.
Sounds peaceful,
She said after a moment.
No corruption constantly pressing in, no demons raiding your towns. Jack, why did you leave?
There was an accident, and I believe my real body may have died. Alternus here intercepted my soul somehow and used my energy as a Trojan Wait, you don't know what that is?
Lex shook her head, her eyes intently on his.
Alt hid his energy inside mine and dropped us both into your world.
Jack looked up at the spaceship hovering a few yards ahead of them and then lowered his voice.
At least, that's what he told me. If he can be believed.
He waggled his eyebrows at her to show that he was just kidding, mostly.
With the gifts you have and how you've already helped Blackmoor Cove, this mysterious energy must be on our side.
Lex reached over and put her hand on his arm.
I'm very glad he brought you to us, Jack.
Me too,
He said, returning her deep gaze.
Me 3,
Alt said, quietly approaching them.
Sorry to interrupt, but we have arrived at this floor's boss chamber.
Jack and Lex shared a look, then both crept to the opening in the wall to take a peek. The boss chamber was a much larger opening with a single dead tree bursting through the black asphalt. Nestled into one of the corners was the throbbing exit orb.
This one will be tougher.
Lex said, peeking into the boss's area.
I'll go in first and test the floor boss ability.
The Bastion turned back to face the others.
Alt, then you come in and start shooting. Then you, Jack.
He fought his instinct to protect the woman and insist that he go in first, but he had to be realistic here. Not only was she running this show, her armor and stats probably made her impervious. Jack nodded and drew his sword. Lex spun away from them and stalked up to the Floor 1 boss. Jack leaned out to keep an eye on her and saw the dead tree spin in place to reveal a carved face. It looked like an old man frozen in a terrible scream. The Bastion in black leather armor lifted her shield as she continued moving in closer to the stationary creature. It was no surprise when the limbs swung down to whip at her when she drew into range, but that didn't stop her. In a magnificent display of martial prowess, Lex blocked some of the branches with her shield and parried others with her sword, spinning and twisting inside the onslaught. Not a single one touched her. One small black leather boot after the other, Lex moved in close to the trunk and slashed at the monster's face. Floor 1 boss, -45, defeated. The dead tree exploded into a shower of glittering light around the Bastion, and no one had lost any hit points or spent a single point of their mana. Jack and Alt moved out from behind the brick wall to join her.
Whew. Those were some super impressive moves,
he said. Lex blushed as she sheathed her sword behind her back without looking, and Jack had a feeling her soloing tactic was all for show. The better move would have been to have Jack and Alt shoot the boss from a distance. The thing probably didn't move, and they would have possibly killed it with very little mana spent. Besides, he'd get more mana as they dispatched more foes on the next floor. But Jack kept all this to himself. She was amazing to watch, and if she wanted to show off for him... The blonde hero put her hands on her hips and said,
You going to stare all day? Or are you going to loot the boss chest?
Jack blinked a few times and then pulled the items into his inventory. After Floor 1 was said and done, Alt received 1 blade with +2 value, bringing him to 38 out of 350. He asked Alt to add his personal growth value to the peripheral HUD. Jack HP 35 out of 35, MP 37 out of 37. Lex HP 270 out of 270. Alt HP 10 out of 10. Coins 32. Inventory value 15. Alt value 38 out of 350. The next 2 floors went smoothly as Lex continued to lead the group. Floor 2 was an open wheat field with huge grasshoppers that attacked with sonic waves, and Floor 3 was a dimly lit rocky cave system filled with monsters made of pure hair. No floor had been pure darkness, and Lex explained that there had always been enough light on every floor she had seen, but reiterated the fact that she didn't trust in any repeating pattern. The Floor 3 boss was a cloud of whirling teeth, and Lex asked Jack and Alt to ambush the crazy thing with long-range attacks first before she came into contact with the amorphous monster. When the bits of bone closed the distance to the group, Lex dashed up to block its path. The Bastion was only able to deflect some of the wind-whipped teeth, while others took off little chunks of her life as they bit into her flesh. Lex -3, HP 267 out of 270, HP 264 out of 270, HP 261 out of 270. Jack was able to burn it down quickly with his mining laser, and the battle was over in a few seconds. The Floor 3 boss exploded into motes of twinkling light within the confined space.
Hair people and teeth tornadoes,
Jack said, looting the boss chest.
This tower is so weird.
Lex nodded, sheathed her sword, and then began to sing. Her deep voice echoed among the rocky confines of the caves, and Jack was mesmerized as her health gradually filled back to full.
Having a healer in here is going to be incredibly valuable,
Jack said, staring at her again.
Ready for uncharted territory?
Lex said, holding her hand out toward the door to Floor 4. Jack checked his display on instinct. Jack HP 35 out of 35, MP 30 out of 37. Lex HP 270 out of 270. Alt HP 10 out of 10. Coins 55. Inventory value 129. Alt value 54 out of 350. There hadn't been any equipment upgrades for Jack, nor had Alt gained any more useful stats from the blades they found, but there was plenty more tower ahead of them, with plenty of higher-value loot to be found. Jack pointed at the door.
To floor 4.
Chapter 23. After the blinding flash of light, Jack saw nothing but red. He turned to see Lex and Alt nearby, and his brain caught up to what he was seeing.
We're in a giant ruby,
he said, spinning in place. They were standing in a carved-out tunnel of sharp angles, and all around him were translucent facets of pure gemstone.
More caves,
Lex said with minor disappointment. He turned to look at the blonde hero and realized he was probably right about her preferring the sunny floors. Too bad they couldn't revisit the Divine Crab Beach. It was practically a paradise. When Jack turned to locate the exit orb, he saw that the sharply cut tunnel continued away from them in both directions instead of the usual dead end. The orb was there, but it was tucked away in a shallow alcove off the path, and he could see its white throbbing glow through the translucent ruby that made up the entirety of this world.
Let's clear the floor,
Lex said, and began moving forward along the hard gemstone surface. Falling onto their standard routine, Jack followed Lex a bit to her left, where she held her shield, and Alt hovered to her right. Before long, they came to a small hole in the wall. The tunnel they had been following was about 20 feet in diameter, but this side passage was only about 3 feet high, and they'd have to crawl to get through. Jack and Lex hunkered down and saw that there were 2 plump orange larvae wriggling around in a large chamber beyond. Their fat bodies scrunched up as the black row of claws on their bottom gripped the ruby surface, pulling them along. Neon red zigzags colored their wrinkly flesh, and the pattern sent off warning signals in the primitive, instinct-driven part of Jack's brain.
Wandering monsters,
she whispered as she watched them move.
What's our plan of attack?
Jack asked, although he really wanted to suggest using the small hole as a choke point. He had learned a good deal about group tactics from Lex already, but she sometimes missed some of the cheaty abuses of the game world. Maybe this is what Alt was trying to tell him about the NPCs.
I'll go in and get their attention,
she said finally.
Then you... What? What would you do instead?
Lex saw his furrowed brow and knew Jack was barely holding his words back.
What if we let Alt shoot those creepy crawlers from out here, then you and I stab them when they squeeze through the hole, one by one?
The Bastion squatting next to him appeared to see the hole for the first time. She took in a deep breath, and a smile grew on her lips.
I'm impressed, Jack. I didn't even consider this.
A small blush crept up his neck to his cheeks.
It's nothing. Playing dice and paper games back where I came from has really helped prepare me for this world.
He saw her expression drop and quickly reached his hand out to her arm. Her golden eyes turned back to his.
Listen to me, Lex. I know this isn't a game. It's life and death. For me, for you, for the whole town and the whole universe. My past is still my past, and I don't want to have to worry about hiding who I am from you. I might mention random crap about this or that being similar to games I played in my world, and if that helps us push out every last bit of corruption, I'm going to use every trick I've learned. Understand?
The light returned to her large eyes, and she moved her hand to cover his.
Yes, I understand. I'm sorry I've been so... quick to anger. It's been...
I know.
Jack saved her from trying to continue.
You were alone for a long time. The whole town resting on your shoulders. I'm here now. So let's squish some bugs together.
Lex squeezed his hand and nodded. The hero split apart and got into position on either side of the small opening in the ruby passage. Then Jack waved Alt in and said,
Fire at the closest one.
Pulling now,
the miniature spaceship said, and his electron cannons fired out their pulses. Gemstone larvae, -5, HP 17 out of 22. Alt automatically used his thrusters to shift sideways after his attack, and it was a good thing he did. Almost immediately after the two glowing orbs shot into the chamber, a red ray of light punched through the hole and right through the space Jack's minion had been a second earlier.
Ranged attacks!
Lex said, getting her stance set for stabbing. As Jack predicted, the black round head of the first larvae poked out, and Lex thrust her sharp sword into its face, destroying it. Gemstone larvae, -45, defeated. The next one quickly followed the other, and Jack held his attack again, letting Lex get the hit. He didn't want to mess things up by shoving his 11 damage sword in the way of hers when she was geared to end them in one hit. Gemstone larvae, -45, defeated.
Nice work!
Jack cheered for Lex as she sheathed her blade. A pair of leather pants dropped on the ruby floor from the second monster. A big smile broke out on her face as Jack bent down to check for an upgrade. Heavy leather pants, legs, value 18, defense 8, max HP +12, dodge -1.
I'd lose 1 dodge, but gain 6 defense and 12 HPs.
He mumbled, considering the new pants.
Right now, anything that gives you more max hit points should be your priority.
Jack nodded and moved his new leather pants over to his character panel. He felt the weight first, and looked down to see thick brown leather wrapped tight around his legs. He was only a little bit slower, but when he looked at his hit points and saw 47 out of 47, he realized the advantage. The higher they climbed in the tower, the more likely they'd run into enemies that could one-shot him. Lex was right. Hit points were going to be his priority for now.
I love upgrades,
he said, then realized that they were a long way from getting any for Lex. Just another reason to push them. Jack blinked and let this train of thought drift to a stop. No more pushing forward. Steady survival wins this race.
It's going to be exciting.
Lex agreed, her eyes lingering on his new tight-fitting gear.
Let's see what else this floor has for us.
They continued to employ the same tactic and easily slaughtered the bugs grouped up inside the hollowed-out chambers in the infinite gemstone. Alt got a nice longsword that upped his value by 18, and Jack's main hand damage up to 12. Lex's beautiful eyes lost focus as she inspected his weapon.
It's growing so fast.
This upgrade has pushed my electron pulse damage to 6,
Alt added. Jack smiled at his spaceship.
Nice. Pretty soon we'll be able to waltz through the first 5 floors while Alt here wipes everything out for us.
Lex took in a deep breath.
You both are truly... Yeah!
She never finished as the multifaceted ruby ground started to shake under their feet.
What's going on?
Jack said, looking to the experienced hero by his side for an answer.
Get in the hole, now!
Lex screamed as she shoved Jack's shoulder. He didn't hesitate and crawled into the 3-foot hole to where the last group of gemstone larvae had been slain. Lex crawled in quickly after him, and the rumbling grew more intense right before a black and orange blur raged past the opening out in the tunnel like a subway train. Alt -20, defeated.
No!
Jack called as his miniature spaceship friend was crushed by whatever had blitzed past.
It's the floor boss!
Lex yelled, getting onto her feet.
Sometimes they attack after destroying all the wandering monsters on a floor.
What was that?
Jack asked.
I mean, I know it was the boss, but...
A giant worm, burrowing through the tunnel,
she said, looking around the chamber for threats.
Oh, the mother.
Lex turned to look at him.
Probably.
How do we fight something like that? Can it get in here?
As if in answer to his question, the rumbling grew louder again, and a bright red glow began to fill the ruby wall on their right. They both backed away. This monstrous creature was eating the ruby like a worm through an apple, and it was definitely coming into the chamber to get them. Jack looked around the room and tried to think of a strategy.
We stand and fight it,
Lex said, determination on her face and her curved metal shield held ready. The glowing gemstone grew brighter, and it was a good 6 feet above the slightly curved floor. He cast his eyes over to the shorter bastion, and an idea took him.
Lex!
He shouted.
Get over by the wall. We only have seconds before it's through. I'll act as bait to draw it out. You stab upward. Surprise attack. Got it?
Lex bit her lip and then nodded, running to press against the multifaceted ruby wall under where the floor 4 boss was about to drill through. Jack ran over to the tiny hole into the chamber and prepared to dive into it if the massive worm came close to smashing him. An instant later, a high-pitched whine reverberated around the angled surfaces of the chamber as the giant worm melted its way through solid ruby to get at them. The tip of the beast consisted of 3 toothy flaps that opened to trumpet out a deafening, high-pitched roar into the chamber. Black spikes covered its body, and Jack assumed that they were used to push the creature along as it tunneled into the gemstone.
Oh, no!
Jack called, waving his sword as he backed closer to the hole.
The big bad monster is going to eat me!
The creature reared up and pushed itself further into the chamber above where Lex was hiding against the wall. When she had a big enough target, the Bastion thrust her weapon upward and into the giant worm. Floor 4 boss, -45, 35 out of 80. The massive creature stopped and reared upward and out of reach as pain echoed through its long body. Jack held up his blade and blasted it with mining laser. Floor 4 boss, -12, HP, 23 out of 80. Floor 4 boss, -12, HP, 11 out of 80. The creature angled its face toward this new searing pain and darted forward in an attempt to pulverize Jack with its spiked body, but its lunging attack brought the worm's body back into Lex's sword range. The elongated monster was inches away from Jack's face when it burst into harmlessly colorful fireworks. Floor 4 boss, -45, defeated.
Woo! We did it!
Jack cheered, but his mouth snapped shut as a pleasurable blast of energy cycled through his veins. He was now hero level 5. Lex sheathed her blade as she walked up to him.
Congratulations on the level up, Jack. We lost Alt, though.
Alt spoke in his mind.
Oh, she's a keeper.
Jack began.
He's still around and talking in my head. He's glad you're thinking of him.
Lex considered him for a moment, then said,
I still find it hard to not think you are insane, even after seeing everything.
Jack flashed her a quick smile.
Oh, you aren't wrong. I'm still insane.
She stepped up to him and tilted her head toward the golden boss chest that appeared in the hollow ruby chamber.
Get to looting.
What am I, your beast of burden?
Jack said with a smirk as he walked over to the chest.
Wait,
he said, turning back around.
Where's the boss's exit orb?
Lex shrugged.
I believe the tunnel curved into a circle. I bet there's only one on this floor, and it's probably directly in front of us.
I'm really glad you're here with me, Lex. There is so much I need to learn, and the more I do find out, the more terrifying this place gets.
She nodded.
Actually, your skill for strategy has taught me a few things, Jack. It's like you see more. You see the flaws in ways I've been blind to.
Together, we'll be unstoppable,
he said as he reached down to loot the chest. Floor 4 rewards, boss chest. Sharp edge, dagger, value 18, damage 7, crit chance plus 0.1. Blue thread shorts, legs, value 19, defense 1, max mana plus 15, magic power plus 7, coins 40.
Ooh, another blade for Alt,
Jack said, then looked up to Lex.
And a pair of shorts? There are shorts?
Yes,
she said.
I had a pair of leather shorts from level 16 to 19. Some armor can be more revealing than others, especially higher value cloth. The equipment's stats are more important.
You wore leather shorts, you say?
He said, his mind wandering.
It's true.
she said, a blush creeping into her tan cheeks. Jack shook off visions of Lex wearing some of the female fantasy armor he had seen in video games and moved the dagger into his main hand slot. Alt spoke up right away.
Your damage value is now at 13, Jack.
Jack just nodded. It was going to get weird if he talked to himself.
Well, should we go for floor 5?
Jack asked, raising an eyebrow.
Yes, we should be able to handle it.
Lex walked over to the wooden door standing freely in the middle of the ruby chamber.
Ready?
Ready.
She grabbed the handle, and they were awash in white nothingness. The savory smell hit Jack's nose before his eyes had a chance to adjust to the dimly lit surroundings. They were standing among shelves holding sacks spilling over with various foodstuffs, peas, potatoes, carrots. They were inside a pantry. The design was very medieval, with stone floors and iron sconces, but it was huge, and Jack figured they were probably in the kitchen of a castle. Ahead was an iron-bound wooden door with the muffled sound of someone chopping vegetables reaching them from the other side. Whatever they were cooking smelled heavenly. Behind them, and against a cobblestone brick wall, sat the exit orb. His eyes turned to meet the shorter hero. Lex nodded toward the door and started to creep toward it. Carefully, she pushed it open, and they both tried to peek into the next room. Heat from the blazing hearth near the back of the kitchen buffeted Jack's face, but the disturbing chef in the white, grease-stained apron captured his full attention. He looked normal enough, except for his face. The chef's eyes were a dripping white mess, as if the sockets were filled with runny eggs. The monster's bulbous red nose hung over a ripped, bloody mouth that was sewn shut with thick black twine. The unsettling creature held an oversized chef's knife in his huge fist as he worked on chopping up a pile of celery. Lex touched his arm to get his attention. He looked down and she began to count on her fingers. 1, 2, and on the third finger she kicked open the door to the pantry as she drew her blade. The disgusting chef looked in their direction with his runny egg sockets and let out a muffled snarl through his sewn-up mouth. Jack and Lex rushed out into the sweltering kitchen, and the chef-like creature came around the kitchen table to meet them, brandishing his knife. The Bastion held her shield ready and waited for the creature to attack first, while Jack circled around the other side of the table. The chef monster was larger up close and especially imposing compared to Lex. She had to be all of 5 feet, and her head barely reached his chest. The thing hacked downward, and Jack, standing across the room, felt the impact in his chest from the force of the attack. Sparks flew as metal met metal. After she deflected the strike with her shield, she came in with her own stab, but the nimble monster parried with its knife. They exchanged a few attacks, neither landing a hit before Jack made it behind the disgusting chef. The monster was solely focused on hammering away on Lex's shield at the moment, so Jack took the opportunity to stab him in the back. Critical, gluttonous chef, -20, HP, 5 out of 25. The creature whirled on Jack, using the motion to hack at Jack with his chef's blade, and he brought up his shield to absorb the hit. Jack, -8, HP, 39 out of 47. Lex took the opportunity and finished the monster off with a quick stab from her sword. Gluttonous chef, -45. Defeated. A pile of coins dropped, and they split the amount evenly, as was the plan. They took a moment to catch their breaths and look around the room. Jack rolled out his shoulder from the blocked hit and realized that Lex had taken many heavy strikes on her shield, yet took no damage. He was about to ask her about it when she walked up to him and put her hand on his arm. She turned her beautiful golden eyes up into his before closing them and singing a quiet yet mesmerizing tune. Jack, +2, HP 41 out of 47, HP 43 out of 47, HP 45 out of 47. When she finished her wordless song, she opened her eyes again.
You're amazing,
he said.
how many times can you heal us? Also, I still have no idea what your abilities as a bastion are. How are you not taking any damage from blocking?
Slow down, Jack. I have two paths, remember? My first path is fairly unique, and it's called Ether Siren. With a skill called Mending Melody, I can heal 5% of your max HP for 2 MP per second, while singing. My second path is a common one called Defender, and it gives me basic defensive role abilities. The first is a passive skill I have unlocked, is called Shield Master. It negates all damage from a successfully blocked attack. The second one, when I unlock it at 25, is a shout that forces most enemies in the area to prefer me as a target. Myself, Kron, and my father all have this path.
Ah, that explains a lot,
Jack said.
I was wondering why I keep taking damage from blocking.
Yes, at some point you might want to switch to dual-wielding weapons, but not for a while. For now, mitigating most of the damage is preferable.
Jack blinked.
Huh. Maybe I should. I hate taking damage through my shield.
Actually,
Lex said, looking him up and down.
I have no idea if your class can dual-wield. But I do know that you aren't really built to take full advantage of shields.
Alt whispered in his mind.
She's right, Jack. You'll need to fine-tune your role in the party.
Not much to do about it now,
he said to both of them.
If I find something better than this shield, maybe we try experimenting. For now, let's roast these creepy chefs.
Jack looked around the kitchen and saw another door leading to an unexplored area of this medieval kitchen floor. They peeked into the next room and saw a room full of dirty dishes. 2 more of the chef monsters were working inside, and there wasn't much they could do but move forward. Lex kicked open the door again and let out a deep guttural shout right away, and Jack couldn't help but think how cute she sounded, grunting to get their attention. Both monsters pulled knives from the piles of food-stained porcelain and utensils around them and began stalking toward the bastion. As Lex used her shield and her sword to parry the attacks, Jack dashed up to the closest distracted creature and activated Double Strike. His blade became a blur as he sliced into the disgusting creature twice in rapid succession. Gluttonous Chef, -26, defeated. The other monster turned his gooey white eyes on Jack as he lifted his extremely sharp knife to stab the new threat. His red, torn lips stretched against the black twine as the thing tried to roar with rage, but before he could land the attack, Lex jabbed him in the side. Gluttonous Chef, -45, defeated.
Ugh. Man, these things are disgusting,
Jack said as he picked up the items both creatures dropped. He found 2 sets of heavy iron boots he couldn't equip, but were worth 23 value each. He shoved them into his inventory and they moved on. A quick peek showed them that the next room in the continuing kitchen contained dozens of hanging animal carcasses, making it hard to see everything clearly. There were at least 3 chefs butchering huge slabs of meat in here, and Jack wondered if Lex could take on all of them without getting sliced open. Sizable groups of wandering monsters were probably the reason she always left at this floor, even if she was geared for more powerful foes. Jack tapped Lex's shoulder and pulled back to discuss how they were going to proceed.
This time, I think I should blast one with my death ray. I can spend a net of 3 MP to kill one in 2 seconds. That way you aren't surrounded.
Lex nodded.
Okay, just remember to save some mana for the boss.
Got it,
he said, and then it was his turn to kick open the door. The 3 butchers all turned their runny eyes to see what the disturbance was as Jack took aim through a pair of hanging rabbit carcasses. The red beam lit up the room and one of the monstrous chefs became a living torch. Gluttonous Chef, -13, 12 out of 25. Gluttonous Chef, -13, defeated. The other 2 creatures shuffled their feet toward Jack, their bloody cleavers held high. That was when the short bastion pushed past him and held up her shield. The creatures wanted to kill Jack, but the space in this room was limited by the hanging meat set up to dry. She went on the offensive this time and swung low, trying to catch one in the knees before it realized what was happening, but the creature danced backward as his butcher's blade flashed downward. Lex barely caught the cleaver on her shield, and she was forced to take a more defensive position. The other chef, however, circled around and pushed aside some of the hanging animals as the determined monster tried to get at Jack. Feeling good about having a badass healer on his team, Jack rushed to meet the second attacker head-on. He needed to practice his swordplay, and this seemed like a good opportunity. The muscular chef swung his knife at Jack's head, and he brought up his own blade to parry. Sparks flew when the sharpened metal met sharpened metal. He was able to deflect the blow, but it was close. He realized he needed to put more force into his deflection strikes. The disgusting creature swiped at Jack, aiming to slit his throat, but he was able to duck under the whistling blade. Jack used the opening in his opponent's defenses to counterattack low and felt his sword slice across the solid bones of the creature's shins. Gluttonous Chef -13, 12 out of 25. The thing let out a muffled moan as he tried to wail in pain, but the stitching in his mouth pulled tight and prevented any real sound from coming out. The chef reared up and brought his weapon down with an overhead chop, and Jack's sword was knocked downward by the brutal force of the blow. He felt the cleaver bite into his shoulder, and terrible pain spread through his body from the point of contact. Jack, -12, HP 35 out of 47. He was about to unleash an unfettered onslaught in retaliation, but the leaky-eyed chef vanished before his eyes as Lex finished him off from behind. Gluttonous Chef, -45. Defeated. Jack +1, HP 36 out of 47. He scanned the room, trying to see any other threats among the now swinging slabs of meat, but everything looked clear.
Need to work on my parrying skill next,
he said.
Don't seem to take damage if I block with my weapon.
Lex gave him a half-smile.
It's much harder to block without a shield, especially some of the higher floor monsters and bosses. They hit hard.
I see that.
She healed him again, and Jack inspected her as she did. Lex, Hero Class, Bastion, Level 24. Health, 270 out of 270. Mana, 185 out of 300. Disposition, admired. She still had full health and tons of mana left. Was floor 6 that hard to solo, or was she being extra cautious? When her beautiful song ended and Jack was left fully healed, Lex pointed to the stone floor behind her.
Looks like this one dropped some leather gloves,
she said. Jack moved to inspect them.
Ooh, for me?
Work gloves, hands, value 24, defense 9, max HP +11. These had a much higher defense, and the HP bonus was nice, but he lost 2 max mana. The trade-off was obviously worth it, and Jack moved the gloves into his hands item slot. As he was squatting down near the blood-stained floor, his vision was not obstructed by the hanging slabs of meat, and Jack saw a wooden chest hidden in a dark corner of the room.
Look over there,
he said, pointing it out to Lex. He looked up into her golden eyes and added,
More loot.
Get looting then,
she said, crossing her arms. Jack moved over to the container, but before he reached the chest, his boot pressed down on a raised section of stone, and intense pain radiated from his foot. Jack, -25, HP 33 out of 58. His eyes shot down to see a rusty metal spike piercing all the way through his boot.
Damn it!
He got out before the pain receded and the spike faded from existence, leaving only confusion and anger in his mind.
Oh, Jack,
Lex said from behind him.
That was my fault. I'm so sorry.
He spun to face her.
How is this your fault?
Traps don't normally start appearing until floor 10, but I should have warned you.
He shook his head.
No, Lex. This isn't your fault. It does open my eyes a little, though. If you had let me come with you that first day, and we didn't find a lot of max HP gear, this one trap could have ended my stay in your world very quickly.
Lex nodded.
The tower is treacherous and unpredictable. Hold still while I bring you to full again.
Jack closed his eyes and listened to her sing. He noticed a slightly pleasant tingling when she healed him, and the more damage she healed, the better it felt.
I need to step on more rusty spikes. I could get used to your voice, Lex. It's absolutely stunning.
He saw another blush creep into her cheeks.
The trap has been sprung.
The pointed-eared Bastion said.
You can safely retrieve the items now.
He nodded and held his hand out to the previously trapped chest. After a quick glance, he noticed 2 items he couldn't use and a blade for Alt. Brutal Cleaver, dagger, value 22, damage 10, crit chance plus .05.
Here you go, buddy,
Jack said as he moved the item over to merge with his main hand slot.
Another increase to damage.
Alt's electronic voice echoed in his mind.
Main hand damage is now 14, and my damage is 7. Also, I don't believe I will gain any more stats from items found on floor 5 or below.
Jack thought the concept of understanding to his imaginary friend and inspected his own character panel. Jack, hero class, irrelevant, level 5, health 58 out of 58, mana 25 out of 35, defense 28, dodge 11, main hand damage 14, offhand damage 0, hit chance 0.9, critical chance 0.1, magic power 0, sneak 1. He closed his information panel and turned to Lex.
Let's keep moving, shall we?
The other hero agreed, and they moved to the next door. If things were going to continue the way they had, Jack expected to see 4 chef monsters in this room, but he was pleasantly surprised to see only 1. His runny egg eyes were focused on garnishing a plate piled high with sliced meat, dripping his oozing pus over the meal as he did. It was almost comical how intent the monstrous chef was on his work. This floor was certainly more decorated and fleshed out than most of the other floors he had seen. Lex and Jack easily dispatched the creature with no troubles, and he dropped another pair of leather pants. He inspected them, but they were slightly lower value and only gave plus 10 max HP instead of the plus 11 from the pair they found earlier. He popped them into his inventory for the town. He turned around and found Lex staring at him.
You told me you could pick up everything, but it doesn't lessen the astonishment I feel when I see you do it. How much value resides in your inventory?
Jack checked his heads-up display. Jack HP 58 out of 58, MP 25 out of 35, Lex HP 270 out of 270, Alt defeated, coins 72, inventory value 397, Alt value 94 out of 350.
397,
he said slowly through an overly smug smile. Unexpectedly, Lex rushed forward and wrapped her arms around him, resting her head on his chest. He froze solid for a moment, not sure how to react, but it was easy to wrap his arms around her and hold her small frame against his. He looked down and saw a pointed ear poking out from her golden blonde hair. The hug was short, and the Bastion pulled away.
Thank you,
she said breathlessly, and then turned her eyes up into the dark rafters above.
And thank you, Alternis, for bringing this gift to our town. It's been so long, but you are a bright light in the long darkness, Jack.
He didn't know what to say, but Alt did.
Tell her that we will not let her down,
he advised.
Alt wants you to know that we won't let you down,
Jack said, and then stepped close to Lex and looked deep in her golden eyes.
But I want to thank you. I can be rough to deal with, but without help from you and from the other townsfolk, I would have lost my mind. Or my life.
They shared a long moment of comfortable silence, both writing a new future in their minds that neither had expected to happen before this day. Jack spoke first and broke the spell.
Let's finish this floor and get back to town. Can't wait to see what Demi does with the new crab for dinner.
It was the last thing Jack said before they peeked behind the next door and found a massively bloated giant shoveling food into his face. Even sitting down, the floor boss was easily 10 feet tall, but he was so packed with fat that he was almost equally as wide around. He must have been a king because he wore a lopsided crown on top of his stringy mop of hair, and Jack was surprised that it didn't fall off as he stuffed gobs of food into his mouth with his fat sausage fingers. But it was the smell that hit Jack the hardest. All thoughts of a seafood dinner left quickly by the back door. Then he noticed the negative status effect icon on the corner of his vision. Bile King's Breath. Lose 4 HP every 10 seconds. 59 seconds remaining. His foul stench precedes his foul presence. The countdown seemed frozen at 1 minute, and Jack knew they needed to end this fight quickly. He turned to Lex and laid out his strategy.
Tell me if you have a better idea, but we need to burn this guy down fast. I'm going to hit the boss with my mining laser and keep it on as long as possible. You run in and try and hold his attention.
Lex thought for a brief moment and then nodded.
Agreed.
Here we go,
Jack said, kicking open the door.
Bring the pie,
was all the Bile King was able to say before his fat form was engulfed in fire. Floor 5 boss, minus 14, HP 123 out of 137.
Who dares?
The massive creature yelled over the flames licking under the fleshy rolls of skin hanging down from his chin. Floor 5 boss, minus 14, HP 109 out of 137. Then the stench cloud's effect hit both heroes. Jack, minus 4, HP 54 out of 58. Lex, minus 4, HP 266 out of 270. This was also when the massive king stood from his chair and picked up a serving platter cover to use as a shield. The floor 5 boss turned the curved silver surface into Jack's beam, completely blocking all damage. Nothing had been able to resist his mining laser before, and Jack filed that unfortunate bit of information away for safekeeping. With his other fat hand, the Bile King snatched up a king-sized fork and moved around the table much faster than Jack would have thought possible. Canceling his laser to conserve his mana, Jack desperately looked around the room for his next move. Running around the table was really the only option. Lex had made it past Jack by this point and stood halfway to the monster who tried to knock her to the side with his shield as he passed the bastion. The experienced hero was ready for such a charge, however, and dove into a roll against the wall and barely made it around the rotund royalty. The Bile King was solely focused on murdering Jack, though, and he squinted his red-rimmed bloodshot orbs as he barreled forward. Jack was sure he was about to get flattened when he heard Lex let out a quick shout and slice her blade into the king's thick leg. Floor 5 boss, minus 22, HP 87 out of 137. The Bile King's eyes went wide, and he slid to a halt a few feet in front of Jack, his sagging load of flesh fighting the momentum change and jigging to a stop. He turned to make a stab at Lex with his huge fork, and Jack turned on the death laser again, now that the creature's serving platter lid was no longer in the way. Floor 5 boss, minus 14, HP 73 out of 137. Jack watched with hatred building up in him as Lex took a beating. Most of the devastating strikes hit her shield, but a few got through. Lex, minus 25, HP 241 out of 270. Floor 5 boss, minus 14, HP 59 out of 137, HP 45 out of 137, HP 31 out of 137, Lex minus 25, HP 216 out of 270. Lex was getting hammered, and Jack knew he'd have just enough mana to keep the beam burning on the Bile King until he was cooked. Then the monster turned his horribly bloated face toward him again. Jack had done too much damage, apparently, and the floor 5 boss pulled up his makeshift shield again, cutting off his mining laser. Lex quickly hacked him in the back, causing the obese monster to explode in a shower of glimmering sparks. Critical. Floor 5 boss, -35. Defeated. A satisfying tingle washed over Jack's body from head to toe as he advanced to hero level 6. Jack -4, HP 50 out of 58. Lex -4, HP 212 out of 270. His eyes moved up to the corner of his vision and saw that the negative status effect was finally counting down. It was a good thing they both weren't near death, or they'd have to loot and run. Or worse.
That was a tough one,
Jack said, trying not to breathe through his nose.
They only get tougher,
Lex responded as she sheathed her blade behind her back. They waited for the negative status to expire, and then Lex healed them both to full HP again. His eyes were pulled over to the iron-bound wooden door that appeared when the boss on the floor was defeated. They probably could push on to floor 6, but he would be fine if they left now. Jack had gained 2 new hero levels and found some better gear. His thoughts of gear pushed him over to the golden boss chest. Floor 5 rewards. Boss chest. Silk slippers, feet, value 22. Defense 1. Magic power +9. Max MP +15. Steel leg armor. Legs, value 24. Defense 10. Max HP +22. King's fork. Offhand, value 25. Max MP +15. Max HP +5. Used to attack a hearty meal. Coins, 68.
Hey, Lex,
Jack said over his shoulder.
come look at this special item.
He moved the other stuff into his inventory, so the only thing she could see was the king's fork and her split of the coins. He felt her lay her small hand on his back as she leaned in and inspected the boss chest.
Oh, it's a unique item, and it's got a nice high value.
Jack kept his focus on the offhand item as he did some math. With that 15 mana, he could channel his mining laser for another 7 seconds, and at 14 damage a second now...
What if I equipped this instead of my shield?
He asked. Lex crossed her arms.
Even though you take damage from blocking, usually you'll want that extra damage reduction, especially since it's just the 3 of us. Some of the damage will probably come your way.
Jack turned back to look at the unique item.
What if I held on to it? Like a mana battery if we need it for a damage boost.
Lex's dark brows came down and then slowly rose back up as she considered what Jack had suggested.
I don't know what a battery is, but I think I understand the concept. Extra power when we need it.
She nodded with an approving frown.
I've considered it, but for most of my life the town needed every item I could carry, and locking up a slot like that wasn't practical.
Jack pulled the item into his inventory and swapped it with his shield. His eyes were drawn to the new weight in his left hand, and there he held an oversized, rusty metal fork. Jack waved it around and smiled at Lex.
I'm keeping this.
The experienced hero gave him a half-smile.
Let's exit here for today,
She said.
Tomorrow, we push for floor 6.